We're in the dark as usual.
I can turn this one on.
Yeah.
Well, John, I'm still letting some people in from the public, and you currently have Heather, Pam, and Tony here. The new member, Linda, is intending to join, and Nick is not joining tonight.
No, not really. It's fine. I just think it's just thinking.
Whenever you're ready to start.
Okay. We'll call this meeting at Cpdc to order. And I guess, Julie, do you want to start with the ground rules of the Zoom meeting? Then we can go from there.
Sure, yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Mercier, Community Development Director for the Town of Reading. This is a meeting of the Cpdc of February 22nd, 2021, 7:30 p.m. From staff, we also have Andrew McNichol, staff planner, and we have Ryan Percival, town engineer, on the call tonight. And from the Cpdc, we have Chair John Weston, we have Heather Klisch, Pam Adrian, and Tony D'Arezzo with us at the moment, and potentially one other member joining later. So the general ground rules, first off, this meeting is being recorded over Zoom and also by RCTV, and potentially also live broadcast by RCTV or streamed on YouTube. We do ask that people remain muted unless you're speaking. And the general way that these meetings typically go is that we have a presentation from the applicant and the development team, and then the Cpdc members will ask questions, and then after their questions are answered and there's a dialogue, they will open it up for public comment. So we do ask that if you would like to speak during public comment, you either use the raise hand feature in chat, which I will be monitoring, or you can go like this. I have you all on my enormous screen here in front of me. And then once you're acknowledged, if you can please state your name and address for the record, that's very helpful to us as we take minutes. So I think that's everything. I'll turn it back over to you, John. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. So let's see, our first item on our agenda is public hearing for a site plan review at 0 Auburn Street, the water tank and radio tower. And so do we have a...
if I can just share the legal advertisement on screen, and Pam, if you don't mind,
yeah, that would be great.
Reading that into the record, please.
Notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that under sections 4.3 and 4.6 of the Reading zoning bylaw, the Community Planning and Development Commission, CPDC, will hold a public hearing on Monday, February 22nd at 7:30 p.m. through remote and online measures to hear the site plan review application submitted by the town of Reading for the property located at 0 Auburn Street, Assessor's Map 27, Lot 362. The application is to replace the existing water tank on the property with a composite elevated tank. The CET will be comprised of glass fused to steel tank atop a concrete column and will be designed to fit 4 cell carriers in a manner that will not affect the maintenance and integrity of the tank. The CET will be located in the same location as the existing tank and will be designed to meet a 7,500 gallon capacity. Additionally, as part of this project, the town's radio equipment will be relocated to a temporary radio tower. A copy of the application and accompanying plans are available to the public at Town Hall by appointment and on the town website the Thursday prior to the hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
No problem.
I am going to turn this straight over to Ryan, I believe, or Julie.
Yeah. Can I just make one quick comment? I forgot to mention, sorry. So one other thing I forgot to mention is that because this is an open public meeting and is subject to open meeting law, we do kindly ask that you not use the personal chat feature unless you're having a technical issue, and then you can chat me directly to let me know. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks. All right, Ryan, you're up.
All right, thank you, John. The project that we're speaking about tonight is the Auburn Street Water Tank Project. It's been going on for a few years now, and a few years back we went out to town meeting and acquired money. Before you tonight, and I'll have Weston and Sampson go through the site plans and the particulars of the project. We are replacing an existing 1950s tank, steel tank. Is currently painted. It's deteriorated. There's some structural issues with it, and we have some catwalk issues along with some OSHA issues. Also on the existing tank are currently 3 carriers. Those carriers will need to be relocated during the project, and also the town's public safety and facilities radio equipment, which will, as part of this project, the town will be constructing a temporary monopole style pole tower to support that public safety antenna, so there's no disruption in 911 service during the period of the project. The proposed water tank is going to be the same volume as the existing water tank at 750,000 gallons. As mentioned in the reading, it will be a composite elevated tank, which means it will be a glass fused to steel on top of a concrete pedestal or a column. The glass fused to steel requires no painting, and it sits on top of a concrete column, which requires little to no maintenance. So it's virtually has a very long life expectancy. Once the project is completed and the tank is placed in the exact location of the existing tank, at that point, the radio equipment will be brought back over to the existing tank, the proposed tank, and reinstalled on top. At that point, the tank will be designed in an appropriate manner to be able to accommodate up to 4 carriers, cell carriers, if they wish to bid on going back onto the water tank at that time. I think this is probably the best point to probably not go any further without showing any plan. So I can ask Mike Warner from Weston and Sampson, if you would allow him to share his screen, he can go through the site plans and we can talk about what will be involved with the project.
Good evening, everyone. This is Mike Warner from Weston and Sampson. Can you everyone hear me all right? And can you see the my screen?
Yep, we're good.
Great. So I'm just sharing the application that was submitted, that the town submitted. So here's a picture of the existing site plan. Auburn Street is in the bottom of this photo, if you can see the cursor, and Beacon Street is kind of going up from the right, on the right-hand side, kind of kitty corner. And
excuse me, I'm not seeing it. All I'm seeing is a Gartner Magic Quadrant meeting solution. So I'm not seeing the right Zoom meeting.
I can.
Now I've got it. Sorry, that had popped up. We're good.
Okay,
Thank you.
no problem. So sorry again, Auburn Street's right here and Beacon Street is in this, where the cursor is. And the existing tank is right in the middle there. So here is a picture that we were able to take a couple of existing pictures, kind of just showing the tank from different different vantage points. And then I just did want to point out that here's your existing tank on the left-hand side. You can see that it's kind of rusted and some corrosion is forming. So it's kind of in need of some rehabilitations, and as Ryan said, has some other issues with it. And then this is just a kind of a rendering, very crude example of what the new tank should look like. And you can see the concrete pedestal here on the bottom where my cursor is now. And then this top structure, the blue, is the glass fused to steel tank. So this is the area where the water will be actually stored. And it will have the same capacity as this, as the existing tank here. And so now I can just show if, I guess walking through the plan here a little bit is to, here's the site plan showing the existing tank. So this would need to be demolished. The site was, we did some soil sampling in I think it was 2017, 2018 timeframe, and due to the nature of the existing tank, and then there's this structure, there's a concrete foundation that housed an older tank. At one point, one of the tanks had some was coated in a material, a paint that had contained was a lead containing material. And so oftentimes with these projects, you'll see that some of the paint will, the paint chips will flake off and will migrate down to the ground. And so we were able to determine that there was in fact some of the soil in the surrounding area had concentrations that were above the reportable limit. And so what the town is going to be doing is going to be removing the soil, the top 12 inches of soil in the area that had the highest concentrations of lead, to try to remove that soil, get it off the site, and then come back and backfill with a new clean material. And then just this existing concrete foundation as part of the project will be removed. So you'll have a nice level site at the end of the project.
Mike, just to step in there, that
Sure.
current foundation, the existing foundation, is currently being leveled as the water department is leveling that out, is just removing it to make a level pad. I just wanted to point that out.
The other piece that I should mention now that will come up in the other site plan, but there were we took some samples inside of the fenced in area on the site. Took you can see, can actually probably highlight them. There's a couple of samples that were also taken outside of the site, outside of the fenced in area, and we were able. There's one there and one somewhere in this area. I can't seem to find it on the plan, but these two up here on the eastern side of the site were above the reportable limit due to the nature of where they're located with the existing trees in this area. Speaking with Ryan, no one wanted to remove those trees to do any excavations, so we're proposing to extend the existing fence line to encapsulate those existing that area that tested above that reportable concentrations. So just moving on to the proposed site plan, you can see here this is the new tank in the same location as the existing tank. We've got two circles here just showing this inner diameter. This inner circle is just showing the diameter of the concrete pedestal, and this outer diameter is showing the diameter of the existing tank, just to kind of show its relation. But it is being placed in that same footprint as the existing tank. And then what we're showing here is just this is the area, the laydown area that is needed in order to prepare and basically what happens is the contractor will build the pedestal up from the ground up, and then they do build the base of the actual tank where the water will be stored. They build that on the ground and then place that on top of the pedestal. And you can see here, just as I outlined on the previous page, this is the new, oh, sorry, I guess I missed a line there. It's actually going right here. That's the new, the proposed location for the fence line. I guess the other two things that the other thing that Ryan touched on was that part of this project will involve the temporary relocation of the town's emergency radio equipment off of the existing tank onto a temporary structure that will be located. We had originally had 3 potential locations on the western side of the site, and have since met with a couple of vendors and some the fire department, and we've narrowed or removed this bottom left-hand corner as a potential option for the location of the temporary tower. And so what we're presenting right now is these 2 potential locations for the temporary tower to be located. And again, that's a temporary structure, or a structure that will be temporarily located on the site. Again, only for the emergency equipment to be relocated from the existing tank to this temporary, or this structure. And then after the new tank is installed and erected and the project is complete, the equipment will be, the antennas and the radio equipment will be moved back from this tower over to the new water storage tank.
And at that point, the tower will come down.
Yes, correct. And then I guess the only other thing, there's some miscellaneous pertinent work that will need to occur on the site. Some site, some water main, underground utility work that will have to occur. There will also likely be some underground conduits run for some equipment that will be installed within the pedestal of the tank for the water department to utilize. And then they've been doing some other work, miscellaneous work inside, just within the roadway, but nothing that would basically at the end of once they're done, it will be repaved. No new structures in the street or anything along those lines.
Mike, before you move forward, can you go back to that plan, please?
Sure.
I just also want to point out as well as that we will need to be taking some trees on the Auburn Street side where you see that laydown area, and possibly a few more for access.
I think we had kind of outlined those. Sorry, Ryan.
Okay.
I think we had I thought we had apparently. Oh yeah, there's some. Remove additional trees and stumps. So we had called those out on the plans, but I'll let you talk. Sorry.
And so and there's a few inside the site, and depending on the location, the preferred location for the temporary radio tower will be adjacent to the radio building. And so we will need to take, depending on where the location is, either top corner or in the middle, the trees that are adjacent to that, just for erection purposes. We do intend to replant trees in these locations to create a buffer. Some of the trees that are in the way and that are damaged, obviously will come down as part of the construction, but we're trying to limit as much as possible what we have to take down for vegetation. We have an established mature vegetation, and that's one of the reasons why Mike had mentioned we were not going into that forested area to remove those 2 outliers of samples. Instead, as part of our encapsulation of the security, we moved the fence out, which we're able to do to contain that contaminant. So it's still within regulations of containment. And so I just wanted to point out those trees. I know it's important to point those out.
Yep. So moving forward, I guess the other thing that I also wanted to point out too is that we do have the setbacks 20 foot from the rear of the site called out on the plans here. And then the setbacks, this is a line, this is the setback line. If you can see it. And so we're not proposing to put anything permanently in that setback area that would be above ground. Obviously oops, something happened to it, but it's this area here. That structure, the tower, the radio tower would be temporarily relocated within that setback. But again, that would be coming down once the project is completed. I guess I can also talk a little bit about this slide here, or this page here just shows the potential locations, and just calls out the fact that we are building the tank to support up to 4 cell carriers, as Ryan noted. So this just kind of shows the potential locations on where the different cell carrier segments, they tend to have 3 alpha, beta, gamma, three sectors of cell antennas. So this slide just shows where those antennas could be located. But I guess I would want to point out too what Ryan noted, that we're building the structure. The structure will be built to match the existing height of the high water level. And I think that the existing tank is about 115 feet tall, so that the new tank should not be any higher than that. Be rebuilt to the top of the tank, it should be about that same height.
Yeah, the important thing to note here is that max water level, that's our overflow level. We can't go any higher than that in our system, so we're governed by that anyway. And so the remaining portion of the tank that's above that is just the cap of that tank that you see there where the cursor is. And so depending on the manufacturer of the tank, that may change slightly in its height, but based on one manufacturer, this is what is possible.
I don't know if I have much else. I mean,
I can just speak to a little bit of the particulars of the tank if anyone's interested. It's a little bit different than the existing tank. If Mike, it might be a little easier if you go to that picture, the side by side.
Sure.
And so on the existing tank, there is a noticeable difference in the sense that the existing tank has an open trellis type feature to it that requires a lot of painting on every single piece of metal that's exposed to the environment. Tanks typically aren't done that way anymore. There's the new style tank, which we have here, which is a composite elevated tank. You have a concrete pedestal, which doesn't require any painting for corrosion or things like that. And so what you can't see on the right hand side for the proposed tank is there will be a garage door, which will allow us to have space inside for sampling ports, our instrumentation, and possibly anything else that we need to store in there as far as maintenance for the grounds, say like a lawnmower or things like that. It allows everything to be tucked away inside, and as you can see, the ladder is not exposed to the outside for anyone to climb up. It's all internal, and so it's locked up, so you climb up internally and then you come out that catwalk that's I don't know, 70 feet up or so. And that's just the particulars of the tank. The tank only, depending on the manufacturer, this particular manufacturer, their standard color is the cobalt blue. That's their manufacturing plants are all tooled to that color because it is fused to steel. So anything outside of that would be an extra and cost the town extra money in retooling the factory to change any color pattern or banding or logos or things like that. So what you see here is basically the standard color that we're proposing. And just a few particulars about the tower. Like I said, the tower will be a monopole. It will have to be about 120 feet, right, Mike? Around there that we talked about.
Right.
The reason being is that there is going to be a short period of time where one of these tanks will be up, whether the existing or the proposed, and there will be an obstruction with radio frequency. So we need to be sort of above board on the tank. So we try to minimize as much disruption of the radio frequencies, from what I'm told. And so the reason why a monopole versus any temporary cow type structure is given the wind loading in this area and the ice loading, because we are close to the property lines, we will be loading this at its highest conservative loading, which is tier 3. That would restrict the use of a cow, plus the cow actually takes up more room than a ballast or a fixed foundation with a monopole on it. Also, there are more rental costs with that associated with the cows. They are restricted. If there's heavy winds, they have to come down and things of that nature. So there is disruption with the public safety equipment. So really what dictates here is the loading from the wind and the ice, and that's what dictates the structure that goes up. What dictates its foundation is really the factor of safety that we'll be governing on that. And so I just wanted to point out those two things, and it probably at this point I open it up to questions.
I just point out, I just thought of a couple of things I wanted to point out here. I just wanted to note that on this rendering, the cell equipment is not shown. Just wanted to point that out so that this is what the tank itself would look like, but then that there will likely be cell equipment, I guess, depending on the number of carriers and how the town decides to proceed with that. There could be some cell equipment put back onto the tank, and that these. Just want to note that this ladder, the exact placement of this overflow pipe here and the access ladders could slightly, change. They haven't been totally finalized, but they will likely be in this general area.
Right, that's a good point, Mike, too. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the carriers have the ability to color match the tank, so they're shrouded and they blend into that color. So that's just something to point out too, if and when it gets to that point where they go back on that tank.
Yeah, that's correct. They should be able to make it to at least make it. They might not get the exact color, but it'll blend.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all I had, Ryan.
All right, great, thank you, gentlemen. I guess first off, I wanted to welcome Linda Harrison, who's our newest board member. She first time meeting, so welcome, Linda. And then I also want to say, right, we'll open it up to board member questions, and then from there open it up to other folks that have questions. I saw someone had asked about how to ask questions, and during that time use the raise hand feature, and then Julie or I will call on you so that we don't have too many people trying to ask questions at the same time. So with that, I will open it up to any board members that have questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
You say that this is a proposed tank. Are there other options, and has this already gone out for bid?
No, this has not gone out to bid.
Okay, so since it hasn't gone out to bid, are you still keeping with the schedule for the installation period, which should take, what, 5 months?
We don't have the best guess that we have for a schedule for installation, depending on when the bids and the submittals are done and the construction actually begins. We could be bridging a construction season, so there is more. It's more likely at the very earliest and 6 months from opening of the bid to latest of 2 years, depending on
Okay.
you know, how it takes to get submittals. And I mean, 2 years, I feel as though that's probably the very longest. And we're probably looking more like a year. So we're on both sides of a construction season, because this probably will break during the winter.
Okay, and the life of this tank is at its end, you're saying?
It's
The current tank.
yeah, the current tank. I should know this off the top of my head now. I've talked about it so much. I believe it's 1953 is the
Right, that's
the date
correct.
on that. And so we've had several inspections, and you know, things change through all the years, but what happens is the wall thickness of that tank starts to deteriorate and get thinner and thinner. So we do have spots where we have very, very thin metal that would have to be cut out and repaired as part of any sort of other rehabilitation project. And that catwalk right now is being used structurally for those carriers, which is not, it wasn't designed to do that.
Right.
And so we have some issues with cabling around the top. I don't have any pictures available to show you all that, but it's loaded with cables all the way around our catwalk, which has to be clear for OSHA reasons.
Right.
And so there's a multitude of reasons, not just that, but there was also a break even that was done on this tank, albeit it was a few years back that was done. But that has not changed from this point forward, as far as we're at the break even about 10 years out. Where we have to repaint again is where we'll see probably 10 to 15 about that break even point with the replacement versus painting. So
Fair enough.
I don't know if that was your question that you're asking, but
Yes.
okay.
Absolutely. That was it for me.
Okay.
For now.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
This is Heather. John, if you can find
Yeah,
me.
I can find you. I got you.
I'll just ask both my questions at the same time. One's probably going to be easier. One is I thought I saw on the plans that there will be foundations for the temporary towers, and I'm wondering what will be done with that area once the towers are removed. And I'll just go ahead and ask my second question. My second question is, I'll just lay it out. The column of this tower seems pretty massive for the proximity of how close it will be to some houses. And I guess I just realized I have 3 questions. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about what alternatives you explored. I heard the part that it's wind and our conditions in New England and safety that led you to this one. My third question is, I think I heard you talk about a cow, and I'm wondering what that means in the context of water towers.
Okay, so we'll just tackle the radio antenna piece first. And so we chose 3 locations based on, as you can see, we have a very, very tight site. We need a laydown area that does not impact the street and stays within the site. And you can see that in the larger diameter circle with the hash lines through there. We are fortunate enough to have redundancy with the MWRA, so 2 connections, a loop, and we also have a secondary tank at Bear Hill. So we're able to demolish this tank where it sits and replace the new tank in its exact location. And so that's why that tank will be in its exact location. The reason why we chose to stay in the exact location is, number 1, the site's really tight to begin with, and number 2, it will be casting, if there is any shadow casting that would happen, that'd be any different. It won't be much different from that shadow casting of that tank that's currently right there now. So it's visually no different. It's different in the aesthetics of what it looks like, but it will be visually no different as far as where it is located on the site, if that makes any sense. The other part of this too is the temporary locations for the radio antennas. The first one in the front corner is not ideal at all. There's not enough room to put it there when we went out for a site visit with one of the tower vendors. And so it left 2 locations. Before I talk about foundations and type of tower that's possibly going there, a cow is a cell on wheels. That's what it refers to. It's basically a trailer. It's pulled behind, it has a hitch, it comes out, it has its own stabilizers. In some cases, it has guy wires that come off as the antenna telescopes up. Ideally, that would have been great to use it in this situation. All the vendors that do supply those, and one of the vendors that we had come out here, it's not ideal in this situation. It's not the most permanent of temporary that we can put there, in a sense, if that makes any sense. It'd have to be taken down in high winds, which is a disruption to the 911 system. And so when we're looking at it, we're looking at a actual antenna that's mounted either by a ballast, which is placed right on the ground, which is massive blocks about the size that you see there, 20 by 25 or 25 by 25. Or in the case of what we're leaning towards now, which is an actual foundation that is pinned to the rock, because we have bedrock that's only about 5 or 6 feet down. And that would be a smaller foundation. It'd be flush with the ground, and it would be it would support the loading that we need and take up less space. So it'd be very, very secure. And then the monopole would be designed in accordance with that, with the wind loadings. When we're done, if it is a ballast, which there are some transport issues with that as far as the cost, and there's also rental of the ballast as well. It leads you down the road of putting a more permanent foundation in as well. And so if we were to have the ballast, that would be removed. If the structure were to have a more in-place foundation, if I'm using the right words, Mike, that would stay in place. We would unbolt the tower. It would be removed completely. That foundation would stay flush with the ground, and grass would be around it. And so we wouldn't want to go back and excavate that out, because it would be, at that point, if we put that in, it would be pinned to the rock for safety reasons. I know that was probably long-winded, but
That's the information I was looking for. Thank you.
okay.
Well, and my other question was,
Sure.
In exploring the types of towers, I just in Googling around, I can see that there are some choices of different styles of tower. Can you tell us a little bit more about kind of what other options you explored, or is this this composite style with the large bulky column really the only option?
So there's all different styles for towers that, again, we're talking temporary here. So we're talking the cows which
Oh, no, I'm talking about the water tower itself.
Oh,
sorry.
the water. Sorry, we're back on the water. Okay.
I'm sorry, that's back on the water tower.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the water tank. The reason this tank was chosen is this is the I want to say probably the trying to choose the correct wording here, but the Cadillac of tanks, in the sense of the pedestal part of the tank does not carry any water, does not hold any water. There's a pipe that actually goes up inside. And so it's a hollow structure inside. So that does not need to be steel in any fashion. And so that's where you get the composite piece of it. There are different types. There's old trellis types and things of that nature, but those tanks would require painting and maintenance. This style tank does not require painting and maintenance. And so that's why a lot of the tanks that are designed now in this area are going towards the composite elevated tank, because there's a bottom half of that piece that does not need to be maintained with paint, and the top half that contains the water is glass fused to steel, which has a life expectancy right now of probably 40 plus years, if not more. They just haven't been around long enough to know that, but it's because it's fused to steel, it doesn't require painting, and so we get out of that maintenance game, which is important. And so that's why that style tank is the ideal style tank that we would be looking to put in there.
I'll just jump in and say that there are you could have a composite elevated tank that has a concrete pedestal, but then a painted or a coated steel actual tank on top. But again, you run into that same maintenance issue, operation maintenance issue that Ryan was alluding to, is that in 10, 15, 20 years, that tank is going to, the steel part, the coated steel, is going to likely corrode and likely need to be recoated, repainted. And in order to do that work, then you're back in this situation where you've got equipment on the tank that then would need to come off, or you need to make, you'd have to figure out a way, well, basically it would have to come off again. You'd be kind of in the same boat where you'd have this, these towers back up, or you'd have to figure out if the cell companies or cell towers or any of that equipment, you'd have to basically be in the same, kind of the same situation of taking those antennas and that equipment off to do the work and then have it go back on. And so, and then also, I guess, just back in the same, there are an steel elevated tank similar to what's there now, but again, you run into that same situation that it's a coated steel product that would need to be repainted, and this same temporarily moving equipment, coating and moving it back would occur in that 10, 15, 20 year period. So with this glass fused to steel, it's low maintenance. You're not going to have to coat it. You're going to get a lot more life out of that tank, and you're not going to have to go through the headache of transferring equipment to do the work, to do anyway.
Thank you.
So this is Linda. I'm the newest member, and if I have some questions and
Sure.
if they've been answered previously, I apologize. But you talked about removing the contaminated soil and moving the fence line. Is it necessary to move the fence for is it because of the contaminated soil? And if it is, can you explain why you have to move the fence out further?
Sure. Yeah. So there's a reportable concentration of 200 parts per million. That is a requirement of the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, Mass DEP. Because this is the concentrations are due to lead paint. I guess they don't have to actually be reported to the state, but it's still something that they're high enough that we consider something should be done, right? Something you should do some sort of remediation in some fashion to deal with the soil that has the higher concentration. So the town decided that they wanted to remove them, kind of do rather than just keep it within the fence line. They'd rather anything that's within the fenced area, they'd like to just remove, so they don't have to deal with it, kind of have a clean site. But unfortunately, there were those two soil samples that were found to be above that 200 parts per million. They were located outside of the fence line. And so rather than try to remove them and cut down the mature trees, the trees that are, the shielding trees, they opted, I think the best option is to move the fence line, and then that way people aren't exposed to that area, potentially exposed to that site, or that part of the site.
So the trees actually remain what
Correct.
there?
That's correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can't really tell from that because the individual trees are not located except for just a tree line. But there is actually a corridor through there where the fence actually could just be moved to. There's a corridor right where we propose to move that fence.
You can see that the tree line is noted by these, half circles, and it kind of runs and where I'm noting in red. So it's this whole northeastern side of the site that is all kind of has existing trees. Just where we weren't able to individually survey all the trees. So
Okay. No, so then I was wondering, you have to remove 2 trees, right? I saw that on the site plan.
Actually, it's more than 2 trees. There's
Oh, I was thinking more up further north where the road comes in. They're north of, those 2 that are highlighted.
yes.
there's going to be 3 down in this general area. Sorry, yep, and 2 more right in here.
And then 2 up north. Okay.
Over here, and then depending on where that cellular or not cellular radio equipment radio tower is going to go, there some of these highlighted trees might have to go as well.
So my question related to the trees is, I was at the site yesterday and it seemed to be almost all deciduous trees, so they were all bare. Is it possible to actually replace the trees as evergreens when you replace them? To give a little bit more, I don't know, not private.
During the winter time, yes. And so our intent is, and again, that's one of the reasons why that fence line is being kicked out in that northern section, because we have those mature trees that are shielding there. And as much as we'd like to say we could duplicate that, it would take years for us to do that. And so anywhere where we take the trees down, and on the Auburn Street side, the trees are a little smaller, so it won't be as bad. We do have some 2 larger sized trees on the I want to say western side of the property there where the temporary radio tower would go. Those are actually they seem to be dying anyway, so it's about at their life expectancy. And so our intent is to replace whatever we take down and to make the site as nice as we can and leave it in better shape than how we had it. And so if that means replacing with deciduous trees or evergreens in that area, we're going to default to our tree warden to ask him what species might be an optimal species to plant there. But that's our intent. Our intent is to put up as much screening as we can that just doesn't look like hedgerows, but is nice and softens the area as much as we can.
And good. I think that's a great idea to put as many evergreens in as possible. The last question I have is, you said this particular manufacturer, the only color it comes in the tank is this cobalt blue, and that anything else would be custom color, would be upgrade. Are there other manufacturers that have colors that might be less looming, like a lighter color?
There, Mike, you might be able to answer this a little bit better. There's really two major manufacturers. Is that correct? Maybe 3
manufacturers, maybe 3. They don't all do the composite elevated, but there are other colors available. The standard color seems to be cobalt blue, if I'm being honest. But I mean, white, there is sky blue, there's green, so it's just an added cost. So it's certainly something that could be considered, and but it's an additional cost, and it would be likely with any of the other manufacturers.
Yeah, and
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that blue is the shades might be a little different, but that standard color, that's sort of the standard color from the manufacturers. And like Mike said, retooling the manufacturing plants, it is a substantial cost to do so, and so that's why you see that color that's there now. That's not to say that color couldn't change if it was, the town.
Yeah, I understand that custom colors are expensive. I just thought, just based on the photograph or that rendering, it looks so dark. It it's just looming. I don't know what other
Yeah, and there's
description.
there's a potential down the road that color can be changed or modified. Again, there's a cost that's associated with that, so I'm just going to be upfront about that.
So is the exterior, I know you're saying glass fused to steel, but is the exterior actually, is it painted? Does it have a powder coat on it? What's actually?
No, it's not a paint. It's what happens is the steel, it goes through a furnace, and essentially there's it's like a liquid glass that is applied to the steel itself, and when it goes through the furnace, it hardens and kind of becomes one with the steel surface. So there's no painting or coating that is, or field work that is done.
So the glass is on the exterior, not the interior?
Both.
It's on both.
Oh, okay. So the fusion makes it one material.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of. That's what helps with the life expectancy.
And even if you were to paint the tank, it's painted. A lot of people don't realize this, but it's painted on both the outside and the inside for corrosion purposes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Ryan, I guess make sure that I wanted to note that the color could change, but up until construction. So once the tank is built, there's no changing it to the evergreen, because like I said, it's not a coated material. It's something that is done at the factory and comes in the color that was.
Actually, that to be fair, Mike, that time frame is actually earlier than that. It would have to be during the submittal process because there's a lead time on as far as manufacturing that actual steel product. So we have up until that point to make that decision on if that color were to change. But as it's shown now, that's what we're showing. And so if there's if people want to if they want to change that color, then that would have to go through a different process of deciding what color that might be. But at this point right now, that's the color. And we have no inkling of changing that at this moment.
Okay, other questions from the board?
John, I was wondering if they could show me on the plans where the public safety radios will be attached to the tower?
To the water tank?
To the water tank, yes, sorry.
They're different than the carriers. They don't go on the sides. It goes on the top, which is, I don't know if you have a picture showing the old ones versus the new one.
Oh, the old ones?
But it would go on the dome type structure on the top. And they're antennas, so they look like whip antennas. So Mike, see if you have it on the existing tank so they can see what those look like maybe. It's kind of, yeah, kind of hard to see. They extend from the top. There's one up there.
All right, did I miss it when I read the
There's one right
design
there.
specs? That who's ever providing the dome should have also include the ability to have these antennas installed?
Oh, no, that's correct. I mean, the town's emergency antennas would be located on the dome, but I don't think we have a detail of that, nor do we know exactly where they want it. That's something that we would that we need to coordinate with the town's provider, but we would detail them. They would be mounted to this somewhere on this dome, likely near. If you recall from the rendering, there is a ladder that goes up the side of the actual tank itself, and then right there we have the ability to put in a couple of supports for the town's emergency antennas to be mounted to those supports.
All right, so the support's on the water tower, not on the dome technically. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying they would be on the dome of the water tower.
Okay. So is that necessary to be included in the specifications for the dome? I saw where you had the number of bolts, the type of material, the sizing, everything, but I did not see anywhere where you had the ability to mount the antennas.
Yes, that's something that we could add. If it's not in there now, then we would add a requirement for the town's equipment.
Okay.
And because we're switching out 20-year-old equipment as well, what we're putting back will be the newest type of equipment that's out and available to us. So those antennas will be changed. So the bracketing has not been determined yet. So that's why it's not in the spec. But as soon as we know what the radio vendor basically recommends for replacement, then that's when we'll spec it out and put it in there as far as what the bracketing needs to be.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments or questions from the board?
Yes, could we go back 2 slides back if you wouldn't mind? Yep. Right about there. Okay, you say you're moving the chain link fence. Am I correct in assuming that this property extends all the way to Beacon Street?
That is correct. And Mike, if you want to be my my hands here for a minute, you can follow that property line. We go all the way, we abut the right of way on Beacon Street, and we go up towards, nope, you're too far out. That's the,
Yep.
that's the travel way. It's actually there you go, the long line, 2 dashes. And then it goes along the northerly side there. And it's basically that, that whole entire rectangle there that the town owns.
Okay. If I'm seeing this correctly, this looks like an opportune time to have a pocket park on that right-hand side. So that we could provide additional plantings.
Currently, right now, we have a heavily treed area in that
Right.
front portion. And to that northern corner actually is a driveway that goes over town property and services 26 Beacon Street. So,
Okay.
and we'd like to, I mean, we can't afford to have, or we can't allow to have any sort of pocket park or anything inside the confines
No,
of
understand
the
that.
facility.
Nope, I understand that, but I'm saying to the right-hand side of this drawing, looks like even with the trees being on that side, that you might have an opportunity to have a pocket park. Is that something that could be considered?
We'd have to look at the area. It wasn't part of the project, but we can look at the area, see what's available for space.
Okay.
Again, I just wanted to, point out what we have there, and I know it's forested area, and then to that north easterly side, we have that driveway that's going through there, which we didn't have an intent to touch at this point. So, but we can take a look and see what we have for availability.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank
for
you.
Maybe some amenities.
Mm-hmm.
Other comments or questions from the board?
All right, I just have one last question. If it's a pocket park, do you have to do soil testing in there?
Probably. Those were the 2 furthest outliers that we had for samples that triggered over that 200 limit. Those would be in the confines of our fence line, so they would be within the regulations of DEP for containment. I'd have to consult with the LSP on that to determine what would be necessary.
So are you saying that those 2, the 2 that caused the fence line to move over were the last 2, the furthest easterly samples that you took?
That's correct. Yeah, there weren't any other samples taken in this general area here between the two yellow lines. So we were just trying to determine what might exist outside of the fence line. We weren't anticipating doing any work on this area, so
Yep.
just.
So
when the use changes, it's important to note when the use changes, and I don't want to speak for an LSP, but if there would be a use on that, then we would certainly want to determine whether or not it would require us to move that, remove the trees and or do any remediation. But those were just over the reportable 200 limits there. I don't know if you can. We had really high levels directly under the tank, which is consistent with old style tanks where any old paint might have just sloughed off and fell straight down.
Mhm.
You can see this is
That's where the old rocket was.
Right. 500, 890 right in here.
Yeah, and generally speaking, it doesn't migrate. But again, we can look to see what we have for room in that area, and see what might be possible for any amenities. If not part of this project, we could certainly think about doing something in the future.
I make note of the fact that we're losing two very large red maples in the center of town, and that would be an appropriate place for crabapple trees or lilacs even, or anything of that sort.
Yeah, we're happy to plant. We're happy to plant in accordance with what we have for room, and replace what we take down. We're always happy to replace what we take, and we'll certainly consult our tree warden on what might be the appropriate trees, whether they're evergreens or maybe some deciduous or things like that. Absolutely.
Okay.
We always like planting trees in this town. So.
Indeed. Thank you.
All right. Comments or questions? I'm going to open it up to anyone else that has comments or questions. If you can raise your hand, and then we can call on you, and make sure to please name and address so that we can have that for the record too.
John, you have 3 hands raised now. Vanessa, Jennifer, and Hamid.
All right, Vanessa.
Thanks, John. Hi, everyone, and welcome to CPDC, Linda. So my name is Vanessa Alvarado. I'm the liaison from the Select Board for the Water Tower project. First, I just want to thank everybody on CPDC for reviewing this. The Permanent Building Committee has also been involved, and they raised some great questions. So it's wonderful when everyone's able to contribute to a project of this magnitude. So I have a few questions and some comments. I wanted to make you aware first that I had proposed and requested from the staff that a calendar be created, less about the specifics of breaking ground in the stages of the project and more about when the Select Board, CPDC, the Permanent Building Committee would be involved in contributing to the project, because with each stage that we have, different issues and questions and concerns get raised. So that would help set expectations for town officials, staff, and residents. So one of my first questions is for the temporary pole, Ryan. You talked a little bit about it earlier, but how does that compare to the temporary tower that was previously discussed?
It will not be supporting the carriers at all. And so to that fact, we still have a height requirement that we need to get to, so we don't have that obstruction from the existing or proposed tank. And so when you get up to that height, what really governs is not the equipment, so to speak, because our equipment's not that heavy. It's more of the loading of the wind and the ice in this area. And because of the proximity that we are to anywhere on the site, we would do it to a factor of safety, to the highest factor of safety that we have, which is a tier 3 loading. And so that dictates actually what that pole would be. And so to answer your question, Vanessa, the major difference is it's not supporting temporarily any of the carriers at all.
Okay, and one of the concerns that had been raised with the temporary tower as well was the cost. So is this more financially, is this more affordable?
So that's the process that we're going. That's the process that we're going through now when we pull those carriers off. It will be more than likely a monopole based on the safety factors, and so that we get into the fact of how long is the duration of this project versus rental versus purchasing of the pole, and then there's also a salvage value that we can obtain if we do purchase the pole to sell back. And so we're working out those costs, but we're still in around, you know, it's hard to say because we haven't nailed down what that structure is, and we're trying to keep costs down, but it's still around the same price, but not to the extent of 500,000, of which I think is what we had allotted for on the last structure, because we're not supporting the carriers.
Okay, that's great.
Probably
Thanks.
less than, it's probably around, it's hard to say, but I want to say maybe around half of that, if not less than that. But we're trying to weigh it all out. So at the end of the day, we're not spending more, there's almost the same amount renting versus possibly owning a piece of equipment that we could either salvage or sell to another town or stockpile for future purposes at another site. So that's what we're trying to go through now.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay.
So there's been a lot of questions about the contamination, especially on that beacon side. You know, Pamela, I love this idea of the pocket park. It had actually been discussed with the select board and with residents as well. But it sounds like by extending the fence, we're actually shrinking the amount of land that's available for potential use. Have we considered decontaminating that area, and is there a cost? I understand that, you know, we haven't tested around all of the trees, but while we're digging up the space, it seems like an optimal time, if we're going to do it now. So
that's a good question, and it's something that we talked about. Because the limits are not they're barely over the limits, and we can contain it, and the use doesn't change for this site. The use will never change for this site. It'll always be a water tank site. We didn't want to get into when you mitigate for lead. And again, I don't want to speak for an LSP, but from what I'm told, it's around 12 inches of soil that needs to be removed. It doesn't really migrate past 12 inches in depth, and it doesn't really migrate horizontally. It just sort of just goes down in that first 12 inches. And so when we get to that tree line, we didn't really want to get into the root zone of all those trees and damage what we have for a natural vegetation to what the neighbors are already accustomed to seeing. And so we took that into account, and that's really why we moved that fence line out to encompass any known contaminants, and even encompass the marginal areas that we have basically highlighted there for S3 and S4. So again, we could in a sense remediate that area, but it would more than likely damage all the trees and require us to remove the trees to do so.
Okay. All right, thank you. Has any thought been given to solar installations on the water tower itself to help mitigate the cost of it?
It has, generally speaking, we really don't want any more equipment up there than we need to for maintenance reasons. That's not to say that maybe there's room on site for some installations once we get everything completed. Maybe, you know, there's enough room on the floor, on the I'm sorry, on the existing grade of the site. But generally, we were not looking to put any solar installations on this tank. We don't want to have any more equipment up there than we really need to have up there.
I'm curious if other towns have solar installations on their water towers.
I haven't seen any, but that's not to say Mike might have come across some. Generally don't see much up on those except for maybe cell carriers, and those are starting to really, they're really starting to rethink that.
Yeah, I would agree. I haven't heard or seen many solar arrays on tanks. Just trying to limit who's on your tank and what's going on there, and anything that you know, trying to limit the O&M costs in the future. And you know, typically the equipment that they might run for a town is, I mean, it's very minimal. I mean, sometimes I guess the one thing that could occur is that you could have a they call them tank mixers, so it's something that mixes the water within the tank, and sometimes those are run off of a solar array, but it's strictly for just running the mixer. And those, I mean, those options tend to be fairly expensive.
Yeah, and those can also be done passively with just mixing with your water too. We can do it in a hydraulically as opposed to mechanically.
Okay, so just a couple more things. So one, I'd be curious when would be a good time, if there's interest, to possibly do a mural on the base of this tower. So the current tower, obviously, because it's on stilts essentially, provides for a lot of light to travel through, whereas this one being solid is a bit more of an obstruction. So I'm curious if there's interest in that, sort of at what stage that would happen. And I don't need an answer, I'm just sort of putting it out there. And then from the long-term planning for fencing, obviously we need security around the site. I would certainly be interested in having something more aesthetically pleasing than chain link fence. So that it's a little bit of a nicer area for the neighborhood. And then the last thing is when we talk about tree replacements, you know, I would love to see to ensure that we have native species of trees going in, as well as anything that could be pollinator friendly.
Yeah, we can absolutely. We can certainly look at things like that, and I can speak with the tree warden and find out what's appropriate for this area, given the species that are around there now. And then just to the point of fencing, we generally don't want to have an completely enclosed site in the sense that we can't see in. And I think I just kind of want to leave it at that, but we would be replacing this in the most aesthetically nice chain link fence that we possibly could. But to have a stockade style fence does not allow us to look into the site.
I am sorry, I apologize.
Just for security purpose, I just wanted to put that out there, that'd be one of the sort of downsides of having a stockade style fence, if that makes sense.
I am definitely not a fencing expert, so I don't know exactly what kind of fence stockade is, but if there's any other type of fencing that could be installed or at least considered beyond a chain link to improve the aesthetics, I think it's, you know, while everything is being changed, we may as well take these into consideration now.
We can see if there's any other appropriate styles. It will, obviously, if we replace the whole entire fencing, it will add cost to the project. So it may not be able to be done as part of this one, but maybe an upgrade in the future if we don't have enough for this budget. But we'll look into see what styles might be available, different styles.
Great. Thanks very much, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Jennifer, do you have a question?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Lockmeyer. I live at 14 Federal Street. I'm I guess an abutter to the site. So yes, I have a couple of questions and a comment. First question, I'm a walker in the neighborhood, and there are a lot of us doing that during these pandemic times. So I just wanted to understand, what are the travel routes and times for the construction traffic? What are the types of dust, noise, vibration, etc. we can expect during these time periods? We're all working from home. Will there be work on Saturdays and Sundays? Sort of what's anticipated, and who do I contact if I have an issue during construction?
So during construction, you can contact the engineering office. We'll be able to help you out. The general construction hours are from, and Julie, you might have to correct me here, the bylaw is between 7 and 6.
I'll look it up right now.
We would intend that the construction would be Monday through Friday between the hours of 7 and probably 4 o'clock. Unless there was a particular instance where they have a crane in place and during a crucial pick that needs to get done. And so that might extend out. But other than that, we're looking through the Monday through Friday. Anything outside of those hours, Saturdays and Sundays, we are available to work on Saturdays. We don't intend to ever work on weekends unless we really need to for whatever reason. But again, right now it's Monday through Friday, generally speaking between 7 and 4. And for dust control, the site will have to have dust control because there will be exposed soil at that point. So dust control, whether through the use of water sprayers or calcium chloride, will be used during the dry periods of the month if there's any dust. And then noise. Noise will be general construction equipment noise during those hours of time. So equipment noise and things like that. I don't anticipate any hammering of any ledge. That's not to say that we might have to do it one day or two, but we're not doing any, to my knowledge, we're not doing any hammering into the ledge. Is that correct, Mike?
We try to minimize that. I think the ledge or any rock would be to the contractor's benefit. But again, the foundation hasn't been totally designed at this point, so the exact depths and dimensions of that would need to be submitted for approval, but likely limited amount of any jackhammering. There would likely be some vibratory compaction when placing any of the backfill, any of the soil material. So there might be some minimal vibration associated with that, but once that's not an extended, that's a few days. Once that is in place, then from there, the contractor is doing the concrete foundation work, concrete pedestal work.
We don't have any anticipation of any generators being run at night or anything like that. We don't have that need for this type of project.
Right, and we didn't state this at the, I don't think we stated this when we were doing the general review, but no new lighting is being added either. So relative, like the equipment, there will likely be some, a couple of days here and there where there's some bigger equipment or some trailers on site, but likely construction of the tank itself is pedestal, as they usually do what's called a jump mount. So it's basically, or not a jump mount, but they basically kind of start at the bottom, and they pour the concrete, let it set, pour concrete, let it set as they work their way up. So it's relatively, they don't need a lot of equipment to do that sort of construction, which is another benefit for such a tight site.
Yeah, the only time we get into that major laydown area is when they're doing that, constructing the actual water tank piece itself, the glass fused to steel piece.
Okay, on the subject of the glass fused piece, I understand that, and I support your maintenance concerns there. But I did also want to say I agreed with both Linda, welcome, new member, and Vanessa, that I'd like for us to think about something more artistic, but I also don't want to pay a lot of money. So I understand that. And I certainly don't want to add to maintenance costs, but I would like to kind of think about it a bit more if we could.
We can definitely look into that. I don't have any answers tonight for that, but
Yep.
you know,
Understood.
there are options to change the top color of the tank. And again, the goal would be to have no maintenance on these tanks. So that'd be something that we would be discussing as far as whether or not we start to establish any paint or mural on the side. So I just want to be honest about that. But certainly we can have that discussion. But that we don't need to determine that color right now at this moment. But for purposes of filing and for the permit and as far as the design is concerned, that's the color that we have currently in place for the tank portion.
I would add that there'd be, really shouldn't, and it's unadvisable to paint the tank itself. So the structure on top, the cobalt blue structure would be
right. The
I would
fuse.
not recommend to paint that. Or
Got it.
Right,
Yeah.
and that would get into.
I agree with you on that.
And that would also get into voiding of warranties, probably with the manufacturer, but not to get into any specifics.
Okay. And then my last two questions are kind of maybe more bigger questions. I'm not even sure, Ryan, if you can answer these, but I'm sort of wondering, what are the benefits to all the residents of housing the cell carriers and these antennas here? I get it. Some of them are emergency equipment things, but it sounds to me like there's other things on there. What is the income that's generated and where does it go? General fund or specific town budgets?
So we currently have carriers on there now. We're really not looking to remove them as part of this project. We're actually just looking to relocate them. If the appetite for the town is to not place those carriers back on the tank or ask them to leave permanently, that's a whole separate discussion, I think. But that would certainly, my understanding is from some of the information that the carriers have supplied us is that's a macro site for them, and so that they do rely on that for coverage. But that's not to say if they don't go back there that they can't go into a different location somewhere in town. But again, right now as part of this project, they can go back on the tank because we can design it in an appropriate way to do so. And so that's really what we're looking to do at this point. We're not looking to change the status quo of what's going on out there.
How are those handled then, Ryan? The long-term, that's a long-term contract then?
So those are, there's really kind of three parts that probably will happen for this project. There'll be an invitation to bid for the temporary radio antenna because it's just a specific type of construction.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I'm talking about the arrangement with the
actual. And so then the other piece is the tank that would go out. And then the final piece is an RFP that would go out for the location of any carriers on the new tank. So, and that will be based on sort of a bidding type structure on where their location is on the tank, because I'm sure there's a preferable location. And so that's how that lease agreement would be drafted up. And then that would have to go through procurement and town council as far as what they determine they want for leasing and revenue and things like that. But it would go out, it'd have to go out to bid for the placement and subject to the leasing revenues too. That goes up.
Maybe one of the board members could answer my question, which is how do we as a town determine that benefit to us? You know, like who oversees, like we must as a town get money for that, which you're saying they bid on.
We do currently receive a rent for those. I don't have the document in front of me, but I believe the revenue, we did list the revenues in one of the documents that were supplied to the select board. You know, and please don't hold me to this number, but I don't, I'm trying to look for it. I don't really want to misquote what we received, but
No, that's fine. So
it's
you're saying
close to maybe a few $100,000 a year, maybe, in total.
and it's sort of a Board of Selectmen matter. And then does it go to the general fund, or where does that money go?
Yes, it does. Yep, it goes into that.
Okay. And thank you. And then my last thing is, are there any, and I apologize, I'm not
That's
up to
okay.
speed on sort of the human health benefits of this, but are there any short or long-term human health risks from the transmission of those antennas or things that are put on that tower?
There, according to recent studies that are out there, there aren't, based on what they're sending out for frequencies. And so that was that was asked of through an RFI that was sent out to the carriers a few years back. But also they're currently there now. It's not an added. It's not like they're going into a new area where there haven't been before. So, but to answer your question, there hasn't been any, to my knowledge, any health implications that at least have been published to date from that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Jennifer. Hamid, you still have some questions?
Yes, sir. Hi. I'm Hamid Jafari, Director of Engineering and Operations for Reading Municipal Light Department. I was just wondering if there are any electrical layouts or electrical plan available for the site. There are two things that I have concerns with. Number one, the temporary location for the cell towers, that they're going to be moved. It looks like they're going to be moved further away from where they're being supplied by the power, with the power. And also for a permanent location, once they're installed, they're further away from the existing location. So I strongly recommend if somebody could contact the electrical contractor for the project, could contact engineering department and, you know, consult with us to make sure that, you know, I assume the electrical requirement for the project hasn't changed because it looks like there's relocation. However, because they're further away, there could be some potential voltage issues.
So if I may just weigh in there for a little bit, and that's why the concerns that we had with placing of those temporary tower is there is a radio building right there where the power that goes to that feeds the town equipment, and that's where we're looking to put it adjacent to that, so we don't have any. We're not changing really the location as far as how far away it is. It's already supplied by power to that radio building. Right. And so, and then the proposed radio equipment is not moving from its existing location. It's going to go back on top of the proposed tank, which is going back in the existing location. So that will be all radio cable that goes up to the tower or to the antennas at that point, but we are still fed by power to that radio building at this moment. We're not looking to move any of that equipment at this time. There is talk about possibly having room inside of the tank in the future to move some equipment and have it in one area, but right now that building is staying in place, and that's where the power is too.
Yeah, and you were mentioning about possible addition of more cell towers or room for another one, right? There are three right now. It looks like there's no, the fourth one is not going to be.
No, and again, if I misspoke, let me just clarify. There will be no cell towers going up on this property, period. The existing cell carriers are on the existing tank. At the end of this project, the cell carriers will go back onto the proposed water tank. There will be no towers. The three locations that you see on the western side of the property were the three proposed locations for the temporary 911 radio relocation. We got rid of the one down at the bottom. when we were out in the field. It just was not a suitable location, and so it left these 2 locations. The ideal location for that temporary radio 911 equipment is right there in that center location. But just to be clear, there will be no cell tower being constructed on this site. Everyone who is asked to leave the tank will go back on the new tank at this time.
And there won't be any additional power requirements to the site?
If that would be up to whether or not if there is a 4th carrier or a different carrier that comes in on the RFP. I can't answer that question, but that would be not up to the town, but up to the carrier. If a new carrier or an additional carrier is added onto the tank during the RFP. So that being said, there's a cell building that's there which is powered. Now, whether or not the remaining carriers that are on the existing tank remain the carriers, there is talk about a merger between 2 companies right now, so the equipment might might consolidate. We don't know any of that, and I can't speak for them. And so if they do add equipment, that would be up to the carriers, not up to the town.
Is there
so
any electric? Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Is there any electrical contractor that they've chosen for this project? Anybody who?
This has not gone out to bid yet. We're in the process of proposing the site to CPDC. We don't have any. Do we have any electrical going into that tank, Mike? I mean, the only thing we have is some low power SCADA.
Right. There's existing some SCADA in this.
RTUs.
For the PLC, yeah, RTUs, PLCs. So all of that will be going back, and then the design does include a proposed active tank mixer, which we've briefly touched on. It's very low. Sorry, I'm not an electrical engineer, but very low power requirements, low voltage. That will be going into the proposed tank, and those conduits aren't shown at this point. Our electrical team, our electrical engineers haven't totally laid that out, and we would look to them to properly size and design that.
And once we have that, we can supply that diagram. That's that I can make that a diagram available to RMLD's engineering for review.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, not a problem. There's certain things that haven't. Like that electrical conduit is still being worked out based on some of the layout, and so those are just appurtenances that will be worked out depending on where the location of certain things are.
Yeah, that would be great. As long as
absolutely,
as soon as it becomes available, if you give us electrical layout, I just want to make sure that everything runs smoothly. And
we will actually probably supply it before the bid goes out, just so you can get eyes on it.
Wonderful.
Prior to, in case anything changes. We don't. Yep.
Yeah. You can send it either to me or John McDonough, the Assistant Director of Engineering and Operations, and then we make sure it's taken care of.
Not a problem.
I appreciate
that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Let's see. I have another hand up from Jackie McCarthy. Do you have a question?
Jackie's my wife, Mark. 26 Beacon Street. She's the boss, but I'm going to do the talking. A few issues with, where we are with this project. On page 2, last paragraph, it says that this replacement will be aesthetically more pleasing for the surrounding neighborhood. I don't know who made that decision. I can tell you, for me, it's a lot uglier than what we have now. So what I'm disappointed in is that these decisions are being made on a tank that's in the middle of our neighborhood, yet our neighborhood hasn't been invited until tonight to even one conversation about what options are available for the replacement of the tank. Now, I get it. The town has needs, the town has a budget, but if there are options as to which tank is going to replace the existing tank? Shouldn't the people that live around this site and, you know, are also paying for this tank, you know, have input in that? So, you know, that's the first thing I'm disappointed that till this point, we have not been invited to one conversation about what those options are and at least have our input into that. I don't think that's the way this should work. My second point I'd like to make is, and Vanessa raised it, we now have a starting date and an ending date. Construction starts in July of 21 and doesn't finish till October 23rd of 23. In 2018, it was a 4 to 6 month project. At the building committee meeting on February 1st, I mean, it was an 18-month project. Now in this application, it's a 27-month project. Okay. But since we've got a start date and an end date, what is everything that's going to happen in between so we that live here can anticipate and prepare for this 2+ year project that is happening in the middle of our neighborhood? So Vanessa asked for that. I hope that we can get town staff to get us that information. So, you know, because we live here, so we can kind of plan our lives around, you know, this project. Next comment, the fence. This fence is a real problem and needs to be reconsidered. First of all, I noticed on the map in front of me that, so there were soil samplings taken outside the current fence line. I don't see soil samplings directly inside that fence line. I do see a couple of samplings that seem to show low numbers away from the fence. I would invite the commission members to come up and visit the site. The land they're taking away by extending that fence is the only open space we have in this neighborhood, right? That roughly takes away 1/3 of the open space that abuts this site outside the fence. You know, what I would be looking for is, you know, we're cleaning up soil on this site as it is. It was suggested that the levels weren't as high where this is. Let's clean up the soil there. I'd like to see that fence push back and create more open space for the benefit of this neighborhood that now is going to go through 27 months of a project and then be left with a new water tank that's going to be a lot uglier, is going to cast more shadows than what we have now. So that would be a real improvement to the neighborhood, to not extend that fence towards Beacon Street, to take it away from Beacon Street. And I would invite, Linda was up here yesterday. I would invite every board member to take, you know, 5 or 10 minutes, come up in the neighborhood. I'd like to meet with you and take a look at the site and what I'm talking about with respect to this fence removal. I don't know what the cost is to dig down 1 foot of soil. I heard about the trees. We're not asking you to take out the trees. You're going to take out the dirt around the trees, right? I mean, that's where the problem is. I mean, that's what's been explained to us, right? I'll keep going and then I'll let Ryan do his thing. Page 23, section 8. I'm going to read you two short half sentences. The tank shall be supplied and erected by statewide Aquastore. Next sentence. The tank manufacturer shall be CST Storage. No RFP has been issued. It sounds to me, reading that paragraph, like a contract has already been awarded. So, you know, what is the status of that RFP? If one hasn't been issued, how can we be saying in this application that a certain company is going to supply and erect the tank and a certain company is going to manufacture the tank if we haven't even issued an RFP? My last point, and we'll turn Ryan loose on this. What are we going to do with the cell carriers antennas. They got to come off the tank. Where are they going? We just got the lease agreements that the town has with the carriers last week. The carriers have negotiated a provision with the town in those leases to put cell on wheels on this site to avoid disruption of their service. That's totally opposite of what, I heard a few minutes ago about cell on wheels. There are provisions in the agreements between the carriers and the town to install cell on wheels on the site. The same issue we raised 7 months ago, when there was an attempt to build a cell tower on the site. And now it's confirmed that it's actually in the contracts that they have a right to. I don't see anywhere on any of these maps where these cell on wheels, if they decide they're going to put them on there because their antennas come off, where they're going to go. Now, maybe Ryan, who has spoken to these folks over the years, maybe has some answers to that question. So those are the issues we have. The fence is a real important issue for the, for our neighborhood to make this site. It should come out of this in a better position than we are now in what this plan is. This plan is not a good one. And secondly, we should be involved in the dialogue when you're choosing a structure like this that we're paying for, that we live around. We shouldn't be involved in that decision-making. Our input should at least be considered. Thank you very much.
So, Ryan, before you provide any feedback there, two things I do want to say. One is we are in this forum, we're not going to get into the leasing issue related to cell carriers. This is site plan review, all of the money, all the leases. That's a a select board issue, not a site plan issue. And right, we've been at this now for since 7:30 to it's 9:15. Right, that's not what this meeting is about. I understand it's important, but that's not what this meeting is about. I guess the other thing that you brought up about not being involved, that is what this meeting is, right? This is not a done deal. This is not decisions haven't been made. This is the public process that we have. No project in town. There might be conversations, but this is right. We have open meeting law. This is how we have to do business. And so this is where a proposal gets put out to neighbors, the neighborhood, and how feedback is given. Pam's a perfect example. I'm going to say, right, there are developments right in her neighborhood, and that's how feedback was given back to developments, whether it's a town or whether it's a private developer. Sort of, this is the process. So you're flat in the middle of the process, and welcome to it. So
thank you very much.
As messy as it is, and it would be great if we could have sort of other ongoing dialogue where decisions can be made, but we make all decisions out in the open, and so we don't have we don't have closed door rooms where decisions get made. They get made right here. So I just wanted to get those two things out there, but some of the other things I think probably Ryan can answer more specifically.
And I just wanted to chime in really quick before Brian, just to remind everyone, please, subject to the open meeting law, and we would request that you refrain from using the chat feature unless you're having a technical problem, and then you can chat me directly and I can try to help you. Thank you very much.
Just to clarify, and we won't speak too long on this, but the carriers that are on the tank now are all tenants at will. And I'll leave it at that for now. Previous select board meetings, we were directed to let the carriers figure out what they're going to do to relocate. As part of this tank project, there is no room on this site unless we clear cut trees and take all those trees out. As mentioned before, generally speaking, whether you don't touch a tree or dig around it into its root system can damage a tree. And so digging down 12 inches gets into the root system. And everything I've been told by tree wardens and arborists is that that's just as bad as tearing down a tree and would kill a tree within a few years. So that's why the fence was extended out. And it was done with careful consideration to the neighbors and that mature vegetation that's there. We could certainly look to clear cut that area and remove all the soil in that area. As far as replacement of the fence, a full replacement of the fence wasn't looked at, but that's not to say we can't look at replacing the full perimeter of fence during this project. That's something that we can look into as far as replacing the entirety of the fence. Generally speaking, we're probably going to remove a few sections. When I say a few sections, a few sides of the fence to gain access to the site. But again, we can look at the entirety of the fence.
I'm not asking you to replace all the fence. I'm asking that the fence, if you needed to move it for construction, I'd understand that, but you don't. Instead of you moving it 20 feet towards Beacon Street, I want you to move it 30 feet the other way. That's what I'm asking for, to create more open space.
I understand that comment.
The open space is actually on the site, but it's sitting behind a fence. That's.
I understand that comment, and we'll look into seeing if there's anything else we can do to remediate that. But again, I'm telling you that in order to remove that soil from around the trees, we will kill those trees, and that's what's going to happen. And so that's why, to maintain those trees and keep them as healthy as they are, regardless of what species they are, we move the fence. So that I'm just, giving you the facts of why it was moved. It wasn't like we were trying to remove open space. We didn't even want to move the fence if we don't have to. We don't want to do any more work than we have to in that area. And again, there's a portion, we're not looking to even touch the section on the northeast section that has a driveway going through that area over there. Okay, so all that was taken into careful consideration when we're looking at the site. As for the tank, again, the chair had mentioned this is an open discussion. This is why we're proposing this stuff. When you're looking at styles of tanks, there's really not much that fits into the category of little to no maintenance, with the same benefit of long-term no maintenance, and not getting into the same issue of having to come back here every 10 years and repaint the tank and deal with the carriers or whatever is on the tank every 10 years, whether it's scaffolding or temporary structures or anything like that. That'd be a waste to do that. So when we do replace a facility, the mindset is we try to look for the best possible alternatives that we have there that support this facility in a long-term fashion.
Fine, I get that.
Well, I just want to make it clear.
Yeah,
because
no,
that's,
I get that.
I just, please let me finish. I
Okay.
want to make that clear in case the intent or the implication is anything different than wanting to supply the town with a state-of-the-art tank that does not need to be maintained. The town should not be in the business of maintenance as much as we possibly can. We don't really want to be maintaining things that it costs a lot of money. It puts our workers in harm's way when we have to climb up there and maintain them all the time. So that's what we look at when we try to do this.
Yeah, Ryan,
And as
that's
far
a
as
great point.
the site's concerned, I am happy to do as much as I can with plantings and things like that, and still maintain access for the water department. I know the water supervisor feels the same way. The tree warden is very helpful in helping us determine what we can plant there, whether it's native species or pollinator or anything that we need to plant there. And so I just want to just point those things out, that we really do look at this not in a bubble. we try to maintain as much of the surrounding area as we possibly can, so there's least amount of impact as possible to the surrounding neighbors. And again, that takes into account that big swath of trees there. To clear cut those trees or damage those trees in any way would make a huge impact to the sight lines from surrounding houses on Beacon Street. And so that was taken into careful consideration. Again, moving forward, I'm sure the color of the tank, it does not matter to me what that color of that tank is. What matters to me is that I present to the board and to anyone else that there is a high cost associated with changing that color. But if that's a discussion that the select board want to have about what color that tank might be, that's up for options too. To speak about the specifications, those are not set in stone. Those are general specifications. Mike can speak a little bit clearer about tank manufacturers versus who is the installer and things like that, as far as the tank is concerned. But I don't really want to get into that. Mike can weigh in if he's got any information on that.
If I can, I think you touched on all of his comments. I'm going to cut you off, Mike, from going into that. You know, we're now at 9:20. We've got, you know, 2 other long items on the agenda tonight, and so this will obviously be continued. I have 4 people here with their hands up, and I do want to offer people the opportunity to make comments or offer up questions, so that with the intent that you know, Ryan and Michael and the select board can hear those questions, and then during our next meeting, you know, at least have those responded to. So I guess what I'm asking is, I'm gonna have these 4 people you know, ask questions or make comments. Ryan, I honestly not expecting you to respond. I want to get them into, you know, the record, and then we'll have another meeting, and hopefully, right, if you can respond to those at that time. So, all right, does that make sense? Got a plan here? And I'll start with Carlo.
Hi, John. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. A lot of dialogue tonight, a lot of good information, a lot of concerns going forward. Obviously, the select board's been involved in this process. Just a quick question. I read through most of the materials. Ryan, how close are we to that 4.6? How old is that number? Just for the public. I know this is going to be a process. Was that 4.6 number the 2016, the 2018 number, or is that a more recent number?
Chair, do you want me to answer that question?
Yeah, if you have it off the top of your head.
That's closer to the older number. There is some fluctuation in the steel market, although I just heard recently that the steel is coming back a little bit cheaper, so it may fluctuate a little higher than that, and so we don't know right now. But that is the 18 number.
Okay, I just want to clarify that.
And there was a recent budget that went out that clarified that, I believe, in an email. So, okay. But yeah, that's close to the 18 number.
Thank you. I don't want to take any more time. Thank you.
Thanks, Carlo. I think the next person that had their hand up was Larry Hayes. I may have that wrong, but that's who I'm calling on.
Hi, Larry Hayes, 29 Beacon Street. I know there's been a lot of talk tonight about the lead contained in the soils. I have been involved in the past with a number of construction projects with remediating lead paint on steel structures. Has the tank itself been tested? You know, being as it's close to 70 years old, I would imagine there's more than likely lead paint on the structure itself. And if so, you know, what are the plans and provisions for the demolition of that tank so that it's not covering the neighborhood.
So I'm going to assume that Ryan, that's, hopefully Ryan has thought of that and Michael has thought of that, and that's part of the thing. And so, right, we'll get you an answer to that during our next meeting. So hopefully you can tune into that. Okay. Mike Lacey.
Hey, how you doing? Mike Lacey, 9 Beacon Street. Larry just covered my same question, just in regards to the lead soil being on the inside versus the outside of the fence. Just as you guys probably are aware, that the fence is very concerning to the neighborhood, you know, and maybe just even I was just thinking about if we have to remove some of the older trees. And put in some new ones, hypothetically. I don't know if that would be a bad idea. And in regards to the landscape, I just had a quick question. In regards to the budget, what was the figure you guys had in mind for the landscape budget for the $4.6 million project? Is that a question that could be asked here, or is there a rule on that?
Is that something that you have a quick answer to, Ryan, or probably not?
Wasn't.
I don't have that in front of me, Mike. I can certainly get that to you. We can have the breakdown for that, but again, it's a nominal cost when you're talking about the cost of the tank project. So it's not high up there.
Yeah, no, it's because I was,
and again, it's not too much of a concern as far as planting as many trees or doing as much as we can to enhance the site. So I just want to make that clear too.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I definitely get, where you're at with the whole fence and you're looking to do everything we can, but it's just, the more space we have over there, the better, and I was just curious about the soil. And lastly, in regards to the temporary, whether it be temporary cell cows or any temporary structures over there, I know in the past, and just doing my own research, I don't know like how relevant it is, but I just had some concern of any temporary structure becoming permanent. And I didn't know if there was like a timeline or a date in the contract mandating the removal of all such structures on the site.
So Chair, if I can answer that very quickly,
Sure,
and I don't have to get back to him with the answer.
Yeah.
Nothing will be permanent on the site, period. That was very clear when we had those discussions with the select board, and that's why we actually had those discussions, but nothing will be permanent.
Except
Invitation,
the water tank.
except for the water tank. Yes. Thank you for clarification. But the actual radio antenna, that will be coming down when it gets switched back over. And currently, right now, there's no room on the site to house any cows for the cell carriers, and we're asking them to figure that out for a time, for the short period of time that they have to leave the tank. So I just want to make that clear that nothing will be permanent as far as a radio antenna.
All right. And then, with the copy of your landscape plan, I fairly safe to say all the abutters that live and walk out our front doors and view the site would like to talk about it with you guys. Just what you guys had in terms of landscape, whether it be arborvitaes, trees, rhododendrons, anything of that sort, any type of native species. Is that possible?
This will be continued to another meeting, so absolutely.
Cool. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Mike. The Forbeses, is that how you say that? Plural?
We played baseball with you, John.
Yeah,
Come on.
I know. I don't know how do you make Forbes plural? Forbes?
Dana and Colleen Forbes, 19 Beacon Street. Our biggest issue is obviously moving that fence. I mean, right now we have trees and everything else blocking everything in there, and I guess it's not a perfect, to be digging around all those trees, but it basically becomes a moot point when we're gonna walk out of a house and be staring at a fence that right now we can't see. It's covered by, or see as much, because it's covered by trees.
I guess we just don't understand the reason to push the fence 20 feet towards.
I realize
Beacon
it's
Street.
dirt contamination, but I mean, nobody goes there.
It's already within
nobody
that fenced-in
disturbs
area.
that. Nobody disturbs that area. Nobody walks that way. Nobody goes by that. I don't know. I guess you're taking away coverage and just making it ugly with a fence closer to the street, which there's no way you can make that look nice. It's basically
Our front yard.
it's basically our problem with this whole
All right.
thing.
Understood. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure we'll we'll get into that issue more. Vanessa?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, John. Vanessa Alvarado, Select Board Liaison. I just want to take a moment to thank Ryan for all the work he's done on this project. I know it's been going on for several years, and many of the questions and the requests that we're raising now are new to the discussion. So, Ryan, I just want to say I appreciate everything you're doing to involve the various contributors. It is seen, and thank you for it. I will propose to raise this with the Select Board Chair, Mark Doxer, to add to our March agenda so we can discuss next steps. Because one of the things that I see happening is we're talking about it, Cpdc are talking about it, the Permanent Building Committee is talking about it. Ryan has graciously attended all of these meetings and presented much of this information numerous times. So if there's anything we can do to help coordinate those discussions, Julie has also been in attendance at all of these meetings. So anything we can do to help make this a little more streamlined, I will make every effort to do so. So thank you both to Julie and Ryan for everything you're doing here.
Thank you, Vanessa. And then one last comment on this, Bob.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so I guess to piggyback everybody, I definitely would like the fence moved towards the water tower. And if the trees die, I'd be willing to buy a nice red maple and plant it there. I'd also like at the next meeting a quote on what it costs to have a light blue or a light green water tower versus the cobalt blue, if you could get that information. And the last thing is this process is I think John said this is where we get our chance, but it seems like an awful lot of work and preparation has been done, and we've had zero chance to have any input about design types, etc. And I admit COVID has created an issue of having a face-to-face meeting at Town Hall. But my suggestion is that somehow you let us have some kind of input a little bit earlier on, so we don't feel like everything's decided already, which I feel a lot of these people tonight get that feeling like I have. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say.
All right, thank you. So we will continue this. Julie, I saw that you, we have an opening, right? March 8th at 8:30 is when we would like to continue this till. So Ryan, and before we make a motion to do that, you know, right, obviously you heard a lot of things here tonight, some suggestions and comments for some additional information. As Vanessa mentioned, right, I'm sure that you're getting some comments and input from in other forums as well. I think the what I heard loud and clear was this issue about the fence there and about the different options and maybe having sort of a better two pieces of information that I feel like I'm missing is how, first of all, how small can the site actually be fenced in? I'm actually going the other direction. Like, do you forget it? We know where the fence is right now, right? And we know where those locations were that were tested higher. How much of the site do you really need in order to make it functional? And where I'm thinking is that, you know, whether you can actually move the fence to inward after that area were cleaned up, so you would still maintain the existing tree line that towards Beacon Street, but maybe even add some more space. But I just don't know how big, you know, that site needs to be within the fence line to be functional. That's one thing. And then maybe, I guess what I'm thinking is whether you can, or someone can, you know, go out there and flag out where that line would be, where you're proposing that new fence line would go. What I think I heard you say was that that you thought that fence line would fit in between some existing trees, and so you wouldn't be taking down any of the vegetation that's there now, and that may give people some insight into what you're proposing there. So those are my two suggestions on that piece, along with everything else that you heard. So with that, I think we we'll need a motion to continue this till March 8th at 8:30.
All right. I'll move that we continue the site plan review for the 0 Auburn Street water tank and radio tower to March 8th at 8:30, I think is what you said.
Yep. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. So for roll call vote, Heather?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Linda?
She's still with us.
Oh, yeah.
She's still here. She's just muted.
Oh, you're muted.
Yes, finally got my.
All right, no problem. Tony?
Yes.
And John, yes. All right, thank you everyone for your input. I am positive that this will make for a better project. So
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Brian. Thanks, Michael. All right. Next item on our agenda. A continued public hearing for a site plan review at 1310, 1312 Main Street, the Reading Animal Clinic.
Right.
Is this you, Josh?
Yes.
You want to?
Good evening.
All right.
How are you tonight?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you. So just to begin, good evening. I'm attorney Josh Latham. I'm stepping in for Brad Latham this evening on behalf of the applicant, Dr. Beth Sherland of the Reading Animal Clinic. This is an application for site plan approval of the properties at 1310 and 1312 Main Street. As you may recall, this really involves the development of a new 2-story office building at the 1310 Main Street site, and incorporating shared parking, common driveway, and shared drainage with the existing animal clinic at the 1312 Main Street site. Dr. Sherland's intent is to really build a purpose-built veterinary clinic on the site, relocate to the new building, and really much better use of these two properties. This is the third public hearing. As you may remember, we last appeared before you on November 2nd. At that time, it was raised that there was conservation review required for this project. And by agreement with the board, we agreed to continue this hearing until we could finish the conservation review process. I'm pleased to report that on February 10th, Conservation closed the public hearing on the notice of intent and intends to issue an order of conditions this month. The plans that have been presented for this evening do incorporate all the Conservation Commission's revisions. And with that, I would like to turn over to Jack Sullivan to give a bird's eye view of these changes.
Great, thanks, Josh. For the record, my name is Jack Sullivan, owner of the Sullivan Engineering Group. And as Josh stated, the reason we continued previously with you is when we went to the Conservation Commission and the Conservation Commission did their site walk, they felt there was a wetland area to the rear of the existing building. We had a third-party reviewer come out that the applicant paid for, LEC Environmental. They felt it was a wetland as well. So that was flagged. We've located that isolated wetland. We show it on the plan now and the associated protective buffers around that wetland. As such, one of the changes that you'll see in front of you tonight is the parking lot area behind the existing clinic had to be reconfigured slightly in order to meet the 35-foot no structure zone from that wetland area. So that was the major change we had to make. Additionally, that third-party reviewer, we have a rain garden design as part of our stormwater solution for this site. They asked that we do a soil probe to show that the soils and groundwater tables were consistent with the other soil test holes that we did on the site. That was done. So we did satisfy all the third-party review comments. The commission felt that we met the intent in all the review process that took place. And as Josh stated, they will be issuing, they closed the public hearing. They're going to be issuing an order of conditions this Wednesday night. So that's a positive. From the CPDC side, the fire department had asked for me to provide a turning movement template for the fire apparatus through this site, which I did. They also wanted to see how access would be maintained to the existing home to the rear of this property, which we did, and the fire department reported back to town staff that they were satisfied with the turning movements that we showed through this site. As far as the site plan itself, not much change. It's the same building as you had seen before. I added some additional walkways around the proposed building, and that was based on where some of the doors would exit this building. We wanted to provide walkways throughout where there was any access doors. I also relocated the water and gas lines to go into a mechanical closet in the building. And as you know, this building will have a sprinkler system. That's about it from an engineering side. There were some landscape planting changes, and Demetra, our landscape designer, is here, and she can answer any questions anyone has on plant types and any changes made on that end. If you want to chime in on that, Demetra.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, so basically my goal was to plant appropriate plants that would survive here, given, the various things that they're going to be dealing with, sun or not sun or weather, et cetera. And my goal was to get as many native plants on the property as possible. So that's what I did. And they're all pretty tough plants. They should survive if they're planted correctly and treated well. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm not sure what you need to know.
So really, I think that concludes, our primary presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have. We also did see a draft decision that Andrew had sent over, and we provided some very basic comments that the board might consider as well.
So any comments from the board? Questions? None from Pam. I saw that. Nothing from Heather.
John, I've got a question. I was looking at the plan. I did not see the relief area for the dogs that we had discussed.
I'm going to answer that one. There's plenty of room now. Actually, I did mark that on the newest plan. There's plenty of room in the back parking lot for that. So it's not one particular place. You know, it's in that parking lot. So there's a lot of area for that to happen. If you can see it, I said dog rest areas in a couple of spots, and you can see I simplified the areas as you approach the building so that, you know, a dog can do his business and someone can clean it up. Did that answer that?
Yes. And one for Jack. With the addition of the sidewalk, did you change the amount of impervious area? Or are you just taking it over from asphalt?
It did increase the impervious area slightly. And when I with the third-party review of the rain garden, my rain garden increased in volume over the previous design slightly. So I was able to account for that increase in the walkway.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for now.
Comments from anyone else on the board? Questions? Nope. All right. Comments. Is there any comments from the public? Anyone else?
I'm not sure if Carlo and Hamid still have their hands raised from the last conversation.
No, actually, I have a question, if I may ask.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity to see the project. Hamid Jafari, Director of Engineering and Operations for Reading Municipal Light Department. And I have with me, I believe, Greg Phipps from the IRD. Couple of questions. Number one, is there any has any electrical contractor been assigned to this project? And do you have the electrical loading for the new building, as well as the layout and how you like to feed the building? That's the first question. And the second question is regarding the 4 EVs, you know, that the chargers that you're going to be installing, 2 in the parking lot for the customers and 2 for the employees. You know, there are rebates available that, you know, you can apply and you can get set up to $750 rebate from RMLD per EV charger. So I just wanted to let that to be known. So the project developers and, you know, the owner could apply for and get that credit from RMLD. But it's very important to us to see that, you know, how the electrical layout and where the electrical room is going to be. If there is any plan that you can provide to us, we appreciate it, because you're going to have to start with a UAN, calling the customer service to start the UAN for the new building, and how the load, internal load, how much you have to, the electric contractor is going to have to fill out the load sheet. So we know what type of load is going to be going into the building. And, you know, these EV chargers, each one of them, they, you know, they consume like about equivalent to 4 houses. So it's lots of load that you're going to be carrying. So for that purpose, we need to make sure that, you know, we properly size the transformer that it's feeding the building, so they're not going to run into any problems in the future. So that's what my concern is. So if you got any plans, any contact from, you know, the electrical contractor, if it's you have chosen or you are going to be choosing an electrical contractor, you know, they need to start with us with the plans and the load sheets, and for us to review and give you our comments.
Can I answer that? I made contact with John McDonough today,
Yes.
and so he's going to be helping us. I don't have any contractor yet because we're still waiting for all the plans to be finalized, but we do have load and that sort of thing. And I gave John McDonough, I gave him my architect's contact information. He's handling all the engineers right now, so hopefully that'll be a smooth.
Sure. We're trying to help you out to just make sure that, you know, you are getting the power requirements for the building, and, you know, you're not going to be running into any type of voltage problem or future issues within, you know, the EV chargers as well as the power requirements for the building. So I really appreciate it. Yeah. John is my assistant, so he's going to be getting I know that he was in contact with you, but I just wanted to, you know, bring it up so to make sure that's being taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Greg, I don't know if Greg, do you have any comments that you want to add for our?
No, I think you covered it. Yep. We're here to help.
Okay, great.
Great. Any other?
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I just have a quick comment for Demetra. All of your plantings look good, well spaced, good coloration. So I certainly approve of all of that.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Let's take a look at the site plan decision. Andrew, can you bring that up? Did I see one, right? Josh, you mentioned, I saw one comment on there that you made today or something?
Correct. Yeah, so Josh had included some clarifying language on which site is which was much appreciated when there's 3 lots that are kind of all similar in address. So that was much appreciated. Thank you, Josh. We'll start at the top, and if anyone has any comments, just let me know, and we'll move down through it. So we provided an overview of the project and the proposal, which Josh presented earlier. The existing site conditions as they are today has been described as well as the zoning of the site.
Andrew, can you zoom in a little bit?
Yes, sorry, I should have.
Sorry. Thank you. That's good.
Site access was, of course, a big concerning question that the sites will be sharing. The sites have proposed a shared easement agreement that will include language for a driveway, walkways, and utilities. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one here, as well as a parking agreement to share the parking. The easement above was granted from the town select board in order to access the site through that 10-foot strip of land that the town maintains. That approved easements for the driveway easement, walkways easements, which Jack touched on, and utilities that also have to cross through that 10-foot strip of land, which will be underground. Down.
So I do have a question on the way, if you can scroll back up a little bit, the way that that's all worded, where there's this easement agreement, and right, it references the 2 entities. The 2 entities will change, right? It's almost guaranteed, right? In 5 years, those 2 entities may or may not exist anymore, or will sell, or something like that. And so I guess what does this mean, right? When the users change, and Julie, when the use changes, how much does this shared easement then flow through to some future owner and or some future use of the property that may not be exactly the same. And the reason why, because we are specifically naming these two entities in this one agreement, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around how that gets sort of perpetuated further down the line. So any thoughts from anyone?
Mr. Weston, if I could give a quick stab at that. So one of my comments with the decision earlier today was to add the parenthetical language where it says shared easement, and it says language taken directly from draft agreement. So that is an easement agreement that we've prepared and provided to the board. And then I clarify that reference to the SoCa real estate really means 1312 Main Street. The ACT real estate really means 1310 Main Street. The only reason this terminology is used, SoCa real estate and ACT real estate, is because it's a two-party agreement, an easement agreement that will be recorded at the Registry of Deeds, and it will be an encumbrance and a benefit on title to both parcels. So
Okay.
it will be in perpetuity or until either party makes an amendment or an agreement that would then require town further review.
Okay. So that, I guess that's the piece that I was missing, that will be recorded.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
That was a great question and great answer. Thank you, folks. So we described the parking on site, which will consist of 45 spaces, which just exceeds the zoning requirement of 44. 2 of the spaces on site will be ADA accessible, 1 on either side of the main corridor so that they have access to both sites, 1310 and 1312 Main. Interior space has not changed much at all since the last proposal, and the building height complies with the zoning district maximum. It's well under the maximum, actually. Some lighting fixtures have been proposed at the rear of the parking lot for safety reasons, and utilities will be connected all underground as we require. Jack touched on the drainage. So you'll notice that there's 2 separate drainage systems that are proposed. One is on the 1312 Main Street side under the parking lot, and sorry if I'm getting that wrong, the 1310 will maintain the rain garden, which Jack has indicated meets all standards to collect the infiltration from that site. Landscaping we overwent, and the public safety department was okay with the plan that Jack had submitted, showing turning movements and the access that will be maintained to the residential site in the rear until further development ensues. So they were okay with that. A traffic impact analysis was submitted in fall when we had first reviewed this project. It found no major impacts, but there were a few comments that some landscape clearing at the driveway entrance should be cleared so that sight lines maintain good visibility at all times, and that has been captured in here as well. A retaining wall is proposed along Main Street, so we captured some details on that, and a further detail will be needed for the building department, and that's been conditioned as it usually is. And just to remind everyone that the site currently maintains a freestanding sign, and they will relocate that sign to the new site, and that will be it for signage. No wall signage or others are proposed or expected. The dumpster is proposed within the rear of the site. I saw it straight from the main corridor, and that will be screened, and I'm sure conservation reviewed and approved that as well. And same with snow storage.
Question on the dumpster.
Mm-hmm.
You have 1 dumpster for 2 buildings. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So
there'll be 1 dumpster in another recycling container in there.
So what will be the agreement allowing both properties to use a single dumpster?
Well, that can be handled either as a basic agreement between the parties to have a common maintenance. If necessary, we can add that to the easement agreement as an ongoing obligation.
If you're going to have only 1 dumpster, you're going to need some sort of agreement The last thing I want is somebody going, oh, sorry, that's my dumpster, and you go find your own.
Understood.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
And so the only waiver that has been requested with this application has been that of providing an official loading zone. The applicants feel that the deliveries can be managed and the site has plenty of on-site parking and space to accommodate for such. CPDC have any concerns or discussion on such?
Anyone? Nope.
Okay. We'll run through the conditions, general conditions. The order of conditions will be complied with at all times. The public safety access shall be maintained at all times to the rear residential site. We have a few plan revisions that were noted in the town engineer's memo and also from CPDC comments that reference to the freestanding sign should be shown on the plans, which I don't think I saw. Jack or others, please correct me if any of these have been done. And, you know, we're happy to discuss and check them off. And same with soil testing sheets, which was requested in the town engineer's memo as well. Not sure if those have been submitted or not.
Those have not been submitted, but they will be.
Okay, great. Here's the retaining wall detail that I mentioned earlier that will be conditioned to be submitted prior to a building permit. And same with the screening for the dumpster screening. That will be approved by planning, conservation, and the building department. Hold a pre-construction meeting with the applicants as we do with all new construction to review any construction management and how expectations will be managed and impacts will be mitigated. So we'll be able to do that. I'm glad RMLD was here today to discuss their needs for the transformer and electric utility plan. So those have also been conditioned. And a stormwater O&M plan will also be developed for the site and be submitted. During constructions, we have our general conditions that we typically do. And here is probably where John was referencing earlier. Yeah, Julie and I had gone back and forth on this as well before the meeting, and this was our original language. I know it's struck through right now, but if you can read that, and Josh had proposed to simplify it to meet MassDOT requirements that may be imposed if the layout is changed. Of course, right now the road diet is still ongoing on its trial basis, so there's no definitive answer that that turning lane will be maintained. So we were just trying to look to capture that safety is ensured if that does at all change and revert back to past conditions. I don't know if the board has any feelings either way.
Well, Andrew, what's the worst case scenario here if Mass DOT doesn't maintain the turning lane? What would happen if the turning study showed that you couldn't do it safely?
That's what we were wondering. You know, what would happen and how we could really condition this. So, you know, the site maintained that entry before this proposal. So, and I don't think there's been any high level of concerns or pressure, though I'm not 100% sure. It's something I can certainly look into with public safety, but that's how the site has been accessed in the past. So I would hope that there's no, major developments, but I can't say for sure.
But I think we've run into this problem in the past where it's a Mass DOT controlled roadway. Even though the town might say, hey, we don't want a left-hand turn coming out of here, it's really Mass DOT who makes that decision. It's not town-owned. And I've had this problem on 10 different sites along Route 28 over the years. with a lot of members, John knows, he's nodding. We've had this,
Yeah.
we've had this same issue. And then if you say, oh, we impose a no left, if the town wants to impose a no left turn out of this site, then really you should be doing that for all the commercial businesses along. So that's, Josh called me today and we felt the easiest thing was to say it's a Mass DOT roadway. Whatever requirements they impose, we'll comply with. And unfortunately, the town's not in a position to dictate too much what happens on the roadway because it's state controlled.
And if I could only add as well, I mean, just, the historical use of this site, it's been 3 access points. We're reducing it down to 1. It's going to be probably safer than it has been. And really, as the way it has been, it hasn't been an unsafe situation. With the recommendations of the traffic consultant, we're going to have better sight lines. So I just really don't see that this is going to be an issue.
Yeah, I'm right there with Jack, is that, there's not, right. You get what you get from Mass DOT. And if they say they want it one way, then that's the way it has to be. So I'm in agreement with that revised language that Josh had suggested.
I see Hamid has his hand up. Do you have comments?
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to make one more point with regards to the easement. We also need an easement, electrical easement that, needs to be signed so we can lay the transformers and all the primary wires and everything that is going to be feeding the building. I just wanted to raise that issue to just have it, bear in mind that needs to be taken care of before we can lay anything out. Before we can power up the building. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that was it for, major comments of discussion, unless the board has any other questions or comments.
Number 36, architecture, building a facade on each elevation. Which are the plans that we're approving tonight? Because I'm not seeing any building elevations in the plans that I see.
So I believe I had included the October submittal of architectural plans in the drive. And those were the final plans that were submitted for the architecture and facades and elevations.
I don't have, I got a fire and truck turning, civil set, plant list.
Animal clinic 10/28/20. Did that? Yeah, that has some facades.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any further discussion on that? No. All right. So first we need to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing on 1310, 1312 Main Street.
Second.
All right. We will have a roll call. Pam?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Linda?
I don't think I'm eligible for this one.
Okay.
All right.
And John, yes.
Okay. Good.
And so we're going to, right, we have the vote on the loading zone waiver. Any discussion we want to have? Anyone has any issues with that before we take that up? No?
No.
So a motion for the waiver for the loading zone? Anyone?
I need to see it.
I move to grant the requested waiver for the loading zone for 1310, 1312 Main Street, Reading Animal Clinic.
Second.
All right, roll call again. Pam,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
and Linda is abstaining. Is that yes? I think. And John, yes.
That was the last motion.
And we, just as a point of clarification, right, we don't have any modifications on this, so it could be approved as is.
Correct.
All right.
Well, the only modification would be the requirement of the agreement for the dumpster, which isn't included.
Oh, correct. Correct. Which Julie and Andrew will add.
Yep, we can work on
Okay.
that language
Yep.
tomorrow.
Yep.
All right. So looking for a motion, right, to approve the site plan review decision.
Motion to approve the site plan review decision for 1310, 1312 Main Street as amended.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Pam,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
John, yes, and Linda abstaining. Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
everyone.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.
You guys.
All right. Next item on the agenda is we caught up a bunch of time there. Is a continued public hearing for site plan review for 323 Main Street, Bagel World.
And I see the name for John Bobreck, Bill Jacobs, and Emily, so hopefully they're still here.
All right, there's John, right?
Oh, all. Is it Tuesday yet?
Close.
Hi, Emily.
I was gonna let Bill take off. Bill, are you here? No. Maybe we lost him. I'll go through the rundown on some changes and updates and things like that. Let me. Oh, all right. Yeah. Andrew's got it. So the plan was modified to improve the area to the maximum extent practical, adding landscaping and rearranging the dumpster area in the back top left corner. So the dumpster is now on the sideline. Fencing will remain to the rear, kind of buffering residents a little bit better. A traffic study was furthered. The traffic consultant couldn't make it tonight, but in summary, they did counts on January 30th, Saturday. And additionally, they did a weekday count back in December that we originally presented. And as we all know the site, peak hours during the weekday, 7 to 9 a.m. Peak hours on a Saturday, 9 to 11 a.m. And during the weekday, approximately 28% of the time, the queuing length was full. And on the Saturdays, nearly the entire time during the 2-hour peak period, the queuing lane was full. So generally, the traffic consultant wrote in their letter report that adding the additional 180 feet of a secondary queuing lane will substantially increase, obviously, the capacity of the site, and should improve overall vehicular flow. So he's recommended that it's an adequate level of service for the use of the property. And obviously we're constrained by the property and the use of it, and we only have so much area. So as we originally presented, you know, with Bagel World's guidance and what they feel they're able to do at the site, the improvements that are shown should alleviate some of the backing up that's there, and that's the ultimate goal. And as we all know, it was presented in the first round. We're eliminating the right-hand turn parking off of 28. I mean right-hand turn entrance, so it's only left-hand entrance. So
John, apologies, my audio was not working. I had to dial in a different way. Sorry to leave you hanging there at the boot off. I was here, I just you couldn't hear me.
it's all good. So, so Bill, I was just bringing them through the landscaping, maximization. The other thing that we did with the landscaping is we added the arborvitaes out back to buffer for vehicle screening and hopefully some audible screening also.
Yeah, and that's kind of a good transition point for me to make a point about that as well. During our last CPDC call back in mid-December, it was brought up. There was a concern from an adjacent neighbor at the rear of the lot over the speaker system and potentially a new speaker system, and being closer and adding that secondary speaker element could pose a new concern with noise. So just in follow-up of that system, it sounds like Bagel World's going to be going with an HME EOS speaker system. They had this unit installed in the Route 1 location this past weekend, and they've already had some great success with it. I don't have a cut sheet in front of me, but the unit at hand, you know, it obviously provides a new HD level quality sound and helps in noise reduction in both the inbound and outbound noise. So not only does the system provide a more clear cut sound solution, but it cuts down on inbound engine and traffic noises from the drive-through and reduces outbound noise from the kitchen and the prep area itself and the restaurant at large. So no longer are you having staff trying to kind of compete with noise inside and out and possibly, you know, speaking louder or vice versa for the customers outside. So overall, it's a pretty substantial noise reduction. And then additionally, the HD outbound noise can be set to basically any level that's required by the local community or governing party. So good news on that front. And then Bagel World also intends to pair that with a new updated POS system that would, you know, paired with the sound speaker, allow features that speed up the drive-through process in particular and make it a more painless and less taxing process for all involved. So sorry to take away from the site there, John, but why I had the kind of invitation to transition there to the sound, I wanted to bring that up because I know we talked about that at the last meeting.
Yep. So yeah, just light updating on the site plan, modifying, you know, some comments that we had. But in general, we've provided the traffic study. So it's all up to date. I do know, Bill, what was the status of the staff meeting in town?
I think it's within a week, but I can't speak on specifics of that. The last I heard, it sounded like it would be within a week.
So we'll be presenting the updates and discussing the traffic study at that meeting.
Yeah, so that PTTF meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, the 24th. So we really wanted, and we appreciate the applicants coming here to CPDC because we wanted to get the board's opinion. I think we all agree that the additional drive-through will help reduce queue length that exceeds onto Main Street. But what we want to get comments on is some of these turning movements and entryways, as we've gotten various comments on them from other departments. And I'll just pull up the decision here. You know, public safety has expressed concerns with allowing entries on both driveways, which can be which, you know, is obviously a worthy point of discussion if they're bringing it to attention. You know, so we wanted to get your guys' opinion on if you felt that that was the best way for vehicular flow, or if entry was allowed on both driveways, is there other things that could maybe be done that could help improve safety and flow, such as restricting left-hand turning movements into that northbound driveway, as we heard at the last hearing, that having the two left-hand entries increases the number of conflict points, and that northern driveway, you know, if it's an entryway for right-hand travelers going northbound, left-hand travelers going southbound, and exiters going left and right, you know, it's a high conflict point. So we really just wanted to get your guys' opinion on this, that we could bring back to PTTF and say that the CPDC and the board feels in agreement on one way or another. So if anyone has comments or ideas.
Sure. I definitely have some comments and ideas, but I'd happy to hear others as well. Or if you want me to start.
Yours may be the same as mine, but I'll just throw out there that I can understand why the safety group is concerned about having that two-way exit and entrance on the north driveway. I'm trying to picture how that would work, and it just seems like it would be really challenging. And I guess a question I have is, just to clarify, the no right turn on the south driveway, so that if you're heading north and the easiest thing to do to get in would be to turn right, is the proposal to is it no right turn to prevent backups on the street the way it is now, where now to get in you have to only take a left-hand turn, and is it only during certain hours? It just, what I'm thinking, yeah, so tell me about that and the thinking about that.
Yeah, based on what Emily sees on site, it appears that blocking that right-hand turn lane will eliminate some queuing issues in that right-hand lane, going from right to left if you're looking at the paper. So that's one of the main issues right now, is they have a clash of vehicles. People want to take a right, but at the same time you have cars queuing up in the center lane and they want to take a left.
Yeah.
And it's a problem. So that's why we've eliminated the no right-hand turn lane. We're eliminating the no right-hand turn into that entrance. And both of these driveways are 30 feet, which is more than adequate for a two-way traffic driveway entrance. So I do understand that, you know, it is, you know, it looks, the site is congested no matter what. And it looks interesting looking at this. Yes, we have a double lane going into one side, which theoretically that will be queued up during the peak hours. At least one lane will be full, the other lane will be half to 3/4 full. So the vehicles will be queued up in that situation. And it's kind of like it is right now where the users are going to have to make a decision. Well, do I go or do I not go? It's going to be a lot of that. And having the other entrance on the left-hand side of the page, it's going to allow users to, oh, you know, maybe instead of the drive-through today, I'll go through and park out front. But it's going to be a user decision situation. And obviously there's limited parking around the perimeter. And once you're in, go around the site once, you'll know that, oh, you know, it's full. I'll get my bagel another time. But ultimately, we're assuming that during the peak hours, the drive-through lane will be fully, if not 3/4 utilized. So having a secondary method of entering the site is absolutely necessary. And with the adequate width for that standard driveway apron, we think it's, you know, it's doable. And it's not any much different than many similar driveway entrances. Obviously, this is a high use driveway, but it's very similar to every other entrance up and down the block kind of a situation. Just a little bit different.
So I have one more question, and then I'll share some of my ideas, which I'm sure are imperfect. The parking places, if we're just looking at this diagram, the parking places to the right of the drive-through lane, those basically wouldn't be accessible during peak hours. So would those be used by staff? How would one get to those?
So there's a 30-foot wide driveway entrance. And yes, if the cars are queuing out onto the street, which we don't think is going to be that much of a continuing issue with this additional drive-through lane, that's the overall goal. You should be able to drive into there. And we have the pass-through lane that brings you all the way around. The employees are going to be parking up on the top left in designated employee parking areas around the dumpster and stuff like that in the loading zone. But in theory, there might be a very small window on a Saturday between 9 and 11 where you might not be able to get to those 5 parking spaces. I'm not going to disagree with you at all there. But the other 98% of the week, it should be very easily accessible.
All right, so my suggestion, open to rejection or improvement by others on the committee. You know, the right turn only, the no right turn, prohibiting a right turn is so counterintuitive unless you see all of the traffic there. I'm wondering if it would make sense to have no right turn during certain hours. So like no right turn on Saturdays or weekends before noon. You know, we know that 9 to 11 is that might make, because I'm just thinking anybody else who might be coming from out of town or whatever, you're going to zip right in there because that's the easiest way and ignore the no right turn sign. I'm speaking from my own propensities. And likewise, I'm wondering if it makes sense to have on the exit right turn only during those peak times as well. I just think doing anything other than allowing only right turns while other cars are turning left during those busy times is just a recipe for even more confusion than people may feel if they don't know the plan there already.
These are great ideas, by the way. Thank you. Yeah, we can definitely mull those over. I would only be concerned about I know what you're saying about the right-hand exit only turn. My only concern with that would be putting vehicles in the wrong direction, causing other traffic issues further down the line, kind of a thing, because now they want to turn around.
Yeah, except for the reality is that during those, and maybe you could do it during certain hours also, like on Saturday mornings, because you're going to get there. The reality is there are going to be cars queuing up or getting ready to queue up to turn left into.
Yeah, so could block your sign. Yeah,
exactly.
I understand what you mean. Yep. Yeah.
And people who, anyhow, I know I've been in the situation where I've got to turn around anyhow to not turn right to get into that left turn only lane.
Yeah. Yeah, these are great ideas. Thank you.
So I'll share some thoughts and concerns. Start off by saying, right, obviously love the idea about the additional queue space for with the second drive-through lane. Though I guess even I'm going to say, especially with having the data that Amos pulled together, I still have some concerns that I think we need to think through. And I guess the two things that I'm concerned about is the most, I'm not sure all of this works with turning movements of vehicles, and especially right near the, well, two places that jump out to me is, yeah, right by the back corner of the building with that, you know, as you're coming around the back, yeah, right there, right. That is definitely too tight of a turn. You can't make that and still, so your car, and this is really the problem that I see, is that as you're making that turn, you can make that turn in your car, because you're going at, you know, what, 3 miles an hour, right? As you're in the lane waiting to order, but your car is swinging into the lane where there's also a car right there too. And so these swing radiuses of the cars right in this corner do not work. I think you need to run some templates on here, because I'm 95% sure that this doesn't work. And so what that means is that then this car, there ends up being a bottleneck right where your cursor is, because they've got to wait until those cars sort of queue out, so then you can get in, and right, that obviously doesn't work. And I think that you have another problem right here, right up at the ordering location, where you can make that turn work, but what's going to happen, because you're going to want to, people are going to want to turn their car to get the window even with the ordering location, that they're going to swing out even sort of further to come up at that evenly, right? They're not going to, you're not going to come up with that and then take a tight turn around there right where you're ordering. And so these cars are going to really start to swing out even further, which might work because the other cars are swinging out further, but all of that pushes all the traffic a little bit or all the lanes a little bit further north than what you have. And if you don't account for that, then it's going to be kind of tough. I guess I was thinking also that you have some, I'm going to say, lost space in here, right? And maybe if the
up on the
ordering,
top,
if the ordering spaces shift to the what is that, the north a little bit, yeah, then you gain a little bit of queue space. It helps in that curve. And I don't think you need quite as much queue space between the ordering location and the pickup location. I mean, maybe you do. You guys got to figure that out, like what that timing is. But I think that's a little bit more manageable. So that's one thing. And I actually have a little I sketch that I'll throw up there if I can in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess my other concern is that as the queue builds around the side of the building into the front, right? We all know that it comes down and it queues down into the street, or at least onto the side, where the sidewalk would be, so to speak, and will also, once this other ordering location comes, because right, honestly, such a great business that it's one of those things, if you clean up the queue, you're just going to generate more queue, right? It's not like, and that's a little bit of a problem with what the traffic engineer did, right? The assumption is that the queue is the demand, but we know that there's more demand than you are able to accommodate. So if you clear up some of the queue, there's just going to be more people that come and fill in. And so that's my mindset in looking at this. And so what I see happening is that this queue, both of these lanes queue up down into, right, this little apron on the roadway. And so if you enter into the other driveway, right, there's a couple of things that happen here. One is you can't swing into many of these spaces, at least in the front there, right? Those front 3 spaces, those would be that are fronting on the road. You can't get into those. You'd have to like back in or something goofy. But more concerning is, right, you go down this lane and you end up with, you're there at, you got to turn around, or you're then creating a queue. Maybe that's good, maybe it isn't, right? You're creating a queue to get into the drive-through lane in front of all these parking spaces, right?
Yeah, that's one thing we're going to suggest to Bagel World is maybe put up like a plastic chain across the 2 do not enter signs, during heavy use. And the 90-degree aisles, we're gaining about 4 or 5 feet along the sidewalk. So we're gonna have adequate nose-in parking. It meets the parking layout, I believe.
Yeah, but I guess the thing is, once you turn in here, right, if you come in this entrance,
yeah,
where can you actually get to, right? Where
just out front? Yeah, just out front.
But not even, right?
May I ask a question to kind of just follow on what John is saying? That if you get in there and you think you saw a parking spot, say where that 18-foot number is, and you get in there and there are no parking spots, where do you go? How do you get out of there?
It is a tough day to not get
Sorry,
a
John, is that kind
right.
of like what
no,
you were
that's
saying?
exactly, yes, thank you. That's exactly the problem.
It's a tough day. It's like a regular day for you're thinking, I don't want to sit in that. I'm not okay. Thinking I don't want to sit in the drive-through. Ooh, now what do I do?
Right. And that's the thing to me, right? I think you can work out those, the turning radius things, the turning radius issues. To me, the problem with this and having this entrance here is exactly that, is you start to almost create a cul-de-sac here with no way for cars to turn around, but just to queue up and wait. And they're not going to, you do that once, you're never going to do it again. Right. So and then that creates a big problem with this other entrance that just makes it not work. If I can put up here, Andrew, maybe, let me see if yeah. Can you all see that?
Yep.
So this was my thought is, right, if you push the ordering locations to the north a little bit, maybe not that far, but just a little bit, and then that gives you a better angle to get to those, and it would actually give you enough space so that I think then you can have a wider swing on the around the corner there. Obviously, then what that does, however, right, the downside is then you start to eliminate the usefulness of some of those spaces that you have in that, on the sheet, the top right corner. I guess I was curious, right, and even around to this other one that has the number 2 in it. I guess I was curious of what was going on over on the I'm going to call it the left-hand side of the paper, the north right of the site, and you had some perpendicular parallel spaces, and is there an opportunity there to make those perpendicular spaces, and then you could get 4 in there instead of 2.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We kind of left the space very wide open for loading purposes, really.
Right.
But we can work it, and we can talk to Bagel World and see if there's a better option.
Yeah. And so I guess my thought, and this isn't a fully baked thought, but if you do have like a way so that you can come in here and keep the diagonal spaces the way that they were, but have, as you come in, you either are going into to split between the two drive-ins, or you're taking squeezing in and taking a left into the front, and then everyone exits out the north the north driveway. And I put an X here because maybe it was hard to see the existing, but whether it doesn't need to be 30 feet and it could be narrowed down and you could squeeze another diagonal space in there. I don't know. That wasn't entirely clear to me. But that way you maintain this, the circulation, and you don't have that conflict that I know that the police and others are concerned about.
Yeah.
And you sort of have, you keep the dual drive aisle, order aisle, which I think is right. Everyone looks forward to. I don't know. So
I appreciate you sharing this. This is great. One thing that we couldn't do on this, and it's just a function of the product that they're selling, is the queuing. It kind of we have to have a good length of post-order queuing.
Gotcha.
Just because of the time that it makes,
that
it takes to make the sandwiches, really. But this is great. I'll talk to Bagel World about a similar layout to this, and we'll see if we can improve it.
All right.
So
John, this is Bill from Jones Architecture. I thought you had some pretty valid points, and thank you for sharing the sketch. It's always helpful to see that put on screen. I just had a question about so if we're entering, we're now basically saying both aprons receive traffic entering and exiting the site here. It seemed like we kind of moved towards a direction earlier, like with the first call and second call, isolating traffic coming into the first exit sheet plan east there. It looked like it seemed like most of the feedback coming there was that the staff liked the idea of dedicating that more as pull in only and not exit. And I know we talked at one point about connecting those traffic islands there, and like even creating a barrier that would not allow traffic to come through back out from the parking into that flow.
Oh, yeah.
But do we feel like we're kind of I just kind of feel like the sense is that it's like we've got this on paper now, and it seems like we're always gonna have to like live with one issue or two issues. I don't know that we're ever going to have a traffic pattern that suits every
Agreed.
situational.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I'm not
Yeah.
discounting or
No,
saying that this is
the curse of a good business, right?
right.
You know,
And you're squeezing you're squeezing here and pushing there, and then you kind of create another set of issues. So with the like equipping us with the best set of circumstances to move forward and trying to come up with a solution that best solves the issues at hand without raising new ones. Do we think it's a little, I'm just trying to get a sense of the entire crew here, that does it make sense to open that back up and have traffic entering and exiting both aprons? Or do we try to control that a little bit more now?
I think what Don was suggesting, though, is that traffic enters on the right side and exits on the left side. That's the way I'm reading that.
Yeah, forgive me if I misinterpreted, but I thought John was saying patrons on this south driveway should be able to access this front parking area, not exit this south driveway.
correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So and actually, I was suggesting that you keep if it works, right? If it means you can get more in there, keep the diagonal
Sure.
spaces to make
Kind of,
that
confines the one-way parking situation.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
I am concerned about the enter and exit, dual enter and exit in both right. You've got a lot of stuff happening sort of right there in front of the building, right in front of the entrance. In addition, right, in addition to your two driveways, you've also got what is notoriously a pretty dangerous intersection right almost right across the street in that Minot Main Street intersection. There's been some, I assume you guys know, but right, there's been some pretty horrible accidents right there because there's just so much to look at, people doing different stuff there. And it's not a Bagel World issue. I mean, I'm not saying that it's caused by Bagel World. I'm saying that, that's another compounding thing about having additional turning movements here compounded with the Minnow intersection just creates, I think, more anxiety in sort of having this kind of a configuration, or a configuration with multiple entrances and exits.
I have a question. I'm thinking about this having this alternate diagram is so helpful. Oh, on my screen, I just moved it this one. To keep on the right side so that when the queue does get longer, and I agree, it will, you got to account for all the people who are drive by and say, oh, the line's too long, not going to Bagel World today. If the line is shorter from the street, they will go. To separate the drive-through entrance and the parking entrance, would you do something structural? Like, you see different things in some other, I've seen some things in some other complicated drive-throughs where you can say drive-through this way, parking this way. I'm thinking of what to do to keep poor Emily from being out there and needing to direct traffic, because if it fills up, cars will do what they will to fit in. So I guess I'm wondering then, would it require some sort of
like curbing?
curbing, or I'm not a fan of these because they get smashed and they look ugly, but you know, those rubbery things like you have at the railroad crossings. I don't know, something to then say, yeah, this is for parking and this is for drive-through, so that cars can direct themselves. It's just a kind of another question, of something to think through. But
Yeah, with curbing, with something permanent and structural like that, it's going to make plowing just very difficult. So I would avoid that, but we could look at modifying it. We would be outside of the normal range of a entrance, but we could make a driveway apron that would accommodate, 3 lanes wide. So we could have, like, just hypothetically, we could have drive-through only text stamped, in the middle of a 35-foot wide driveway, say. And on the right-hand side, parking only, and then on the left-hand side, parking only, and we can stripe it, like John has shown, like in this situation. But the striping would ultimately be like your best bet.
yeah.
Just because it's, even if we did the permanent beam poles, mounted, they could do that. I just don't know how long they'll last.
No, yeah, you could tell I come from a place originally a long time ago where nobody had to think about plowing. So I get these images in my mind, forgetting that we've got a bunch of snow out there right now.
Well, we can talk to them about that. That's a good point.
Can I ask a quick clarification, John, about something you said? So I'm trying to think about, like, so if a car turns into that, like, southern entrance, but that northern lane, right, to go into the parking area, would the spaces be diagonal so that one car could park either on the, like, in the westernmost spaces or the easternmost, or would they be, like, how are you thinking the diagonals would work? And would a car be able to actually, like, circumnavigate the parking lot in this outer lane and then come into the parking lot down here and park, like, in one of the spaces to the south? Like, if they were, do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess I was thinking that, because right now you can come in this driveway, right? And swing around. You can even get into that first space, because I've done it. It's a little tricky, but you can do it, and use all those from that entrance. So I guess that's really what I was thinking, is just keeping those diagonal parking spaces the same way, because they work. Though if it works better and you can get them in there, more of them, by being perpendicular, maybe that works too. I mean, but the thought of going all the way around, right, the building, and then coming back in, and to try and park in there, if they were diagonal, you wouldn't be able to do that.
Right, unless the ones on the, like, the westernmost ones right at the bottom of the screen were angled the other way, right? Like, that's what I was.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Trying to figure out what would make sense. And then I guess, like, yeah.
I guess, right. I know now no one does that.
Right.
No one, if you circle around, by the time you get over here, you're already like, okay, I'm out of here. Or, like, you don't then, right, because you can't, right? You park along the side here, or you leave. But I guess, right, there are more, if you can fit more spaces back here, then maybe that's an option, to park in the back there.
I guess I'm just trying to figure out how that pass-through lane is, like, the most useful, right? And is it, like, just for people that are in the queue that decide they don't want to wait any longer, or is it for people who see the parking spaces on the sides, or could it be, like, because people frequent the site, like, they come again, and, like, they'll get used to, like, so I think if I knew that I could definitely get a parking space and I just had to drive around the parking lot once, I mean, I don't know, I'm not everybody, but
yeah, I might do that. Yeah,
I could get used to that, and I could do that if I knew that, like, the design would work.
I've done it. If it opens up, you got to fight for your parking spaces better, John. It's rare, but yeah, I've used that pass through. Like, okay, I'm going to drive around, and then and it opens up, so I pop in. But yeah,
I'll tell
I think
you,
giving options
I
is
probably
good.
shouldn't say this out loud on RCTV, but I park across the street and actually walk. It's a novel idea. It's really novel, but right, there's now a nice crosswalk there.
Crosswalk.
Yeah.
I've done it too.
Yeah.
I was just thinking too, like sometimes I haven't gone because the entrance has been blocked so much. But if there's 3 lanes and I knew, okay, if I go in the outer lane and go around and I can get to the parking lot.
Yep.
Like I would go.
It's the parking lot out front, you mean?
Yeah, like so if the apron were wide enough and it, to have the ability for 3.
Yeah, so if we left it at the 90 degree as shown, you could get in there theoretically and park. And you also have just barely enough room to turn around, to get out of there.
Yeah, so what I'm saying, sometimes that entrance is really blocked to the point where like I'm the kind of person that wants to park and go in. I'm not a drive-through person, right? So I just won't go to Bagel World because the entrance is blocked. But if there's a way to get in and then get around the site to park, that's an option.
Yeah, no, I understand. I like that idea too, and that gives the most possible flow to that front parking area as humanly possible, really.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out.
And naturally, if the queuing lane is backed up to the driveway apron on the sidewalk, you can't get out of there anyway that way. You have to go out. You have to exit through the exit, just in case if somebody decided they wanted to loop around again or something, get into the pass-through lane. So go through the parking area out front and loop again. It would really, it's like its own policing when it's queued up.
Can I just ask a simple question?
Sure. Depends on how simple.
Yeah, I'm just interested to see if there are any electrical changes, any electrical upgrades to the building or any EV chargers at any of those parking spaces that they're planning to add.
That'd be a Bill question. Bill?
There is nothing owned in the documents other than electrical contractor to be owned to trench to any new signage, speaker location. No EV stations or anything out of the ordinary at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. If you do, just please, just pass it on that, if they add, they need to notify us with the electrical layout that how and where these chargers they're going to be going, because they use significant amount of load and the transformer up on the property needs to be definitely upgraded. And somebody needs to notify RMLD about those additions. We appreciate it.
Okay, we'll do.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
Anyone? No? All right.
All right, these are great thoughts and additions that we can bring to PTTF and flush everything out and square them away and
see where you end up.
Get this moving forward to the next one. So,
actually, can I make one quick comment?
Please.
You don't need 3 entrances on the south side. The reason for that is if you're at the condition where you're backing up, that first entrance to go around, nobody will be able to get to. They're going to be stuck in the drive-through lane.
Yeah, if we make the driveway apron adequate width across, so say each lane is 10 feet. I mean, we're showing a 30-foot apron right now, but if we're showing the drive-through lanes being 10.5 feet, so if we made it 32 feet, technically we would have 3 identified lanes. That's kind of what we were getting at.
Correct, but the problem will be that your drive-through lane will back up onto Main Street.
Yes.
And nobody will be able to get into the pass-through lane because everybody going through the drive-through will be blocking them.
Yeah, yeah, saying that both drive-through lanes will eventually queue back. Is that what you're?
Once you queue onto Route 28, your third lane is dead.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
That's why we sorry, John, but that's the reason why we suggested to not have that right turn in, because when I've been outside, and I'm sorry, I'm so tired. I had to work this morning and all day. But when customers are coming in from the left, which I realize is a DOT thing, maybe it's not permanent, maybe it is, we still don't know. But when customers are not able to come in from the right and they're only coming in from the left, there is plenty of space, and even plenty of space with parking in its existing conditions to park on the right-hand side, have a pass-through lane, and 2 drive-through lanes queued up to the bottom. You're 100% correct. If people are coming in on the right, then yes, it is dead because people are not reading all the signage in front of them that they are not allowed to queue up onto 28.
Agreed and understood, Emily. Thank you.
So yeah, we're gonna take a pass at all this, talk to Emily, see how we can improve the layout better. Go to the design review meeting, and then we'll get back with you guys.
All right, thank you. Appreciate all your work.
Thank you. We'll get
We
there.
want to continue this to a specific date, March 8th, or the second March meeting, if it works better for the applicants. Whatever works.
Let's see.
I know you'll need to maybe do some design changes. I don't know if March 8th is too soon for you, or if you think you can make that work.
We have the meeting this week.
Yep.
On Wednesday. We can get something to you guys by the 3rd to be on for the 8th.
Shoot for it.
Okay. And if not, we'll send you a letter that says put us on the next one.
All right, so looking for a motion to continue till March 8th at, what do you think,
30.
Andrew? What time?
9:30.
9:30?
Motion to continue to March 8th at 9:30 for the Bagel World discussion.
Second.
All right, roll call. Heather?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
John? Yes.
Great. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you. Is there a short discussion we can and should have on the stormwater updates? And then we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, so I'll just give a quick update. There was a question regarding the stormwater bylaw, the revisions that are going to town meeting in April. And from the last time we talked about it, I think this is the 3rd time now. So basically the basic gist is that we're making some changes to bring it into compliance with the MS4 permit. So, and some other little technical kind of, and some procedural changes. And there was a question about what was meant by, let me just find the email. The term stormwater management and erosion control procedures, and because that wasn't a defined term, though it was capitalized. And so it turns out those are actually the CPDC's procedures for dealing with these applications. And I just didn't know because we've never used them. So town council suggested some language, and I can share it really quick on the screen. Let me just. Tell me, do you guys see? Is it good?
Yep.
We're back over here. I'm looking at you, not looking over there. Okay, so basically, it's really like the procedures that govern like plan submittal and like kind of internal processes and, you know, like all the stuff that like we do administratively mostly is what that's about. So there are regulations and then there's procedures and there's a bylaw. So they clarified that the CPDC's stormwater regulations would apply to all projects, regardless of whether CPDC is reviewing it or Conservation Commission's reviewing it. But they wanted to give flexibility for the Conservation Commission to adopt their own procedures that make sense maybe for them, for their process. And it really does relate to a lot of the administrative stuff that we do. So they wanted to give maximum flexibility for that, since the ConsCom operates a little differently than we do. And then if they're lining up a review of stormwater with some other review they're doing for the project, it might make sense to have a slightly different procedure than we would have at CPDC. So that's the basic gist. This is the language to clarify that. They took that specific term out. Does this seem good? Makes sense.
That makes more sense to me.
All right.
Yeah, I agree. At a glance, this makes better sense.
And then the other thing I want to just mention really quick is that CPDC has been asked to be the entity that sponsors this article at town meeting. So what that means is, you know, someone from CPDC would give a brief presentation of what's changing, and then like staff would be there as well as town council to answer any technical questions that might come up if you needed support like that for those types of questions. Thoughts, problems, concerns, all good.
I thought I tanked my last presentation pretty well, so.
I'll say I am not a town meeting member, and I don't mind going to make that presentation. But if someone on the board that is a town meeting member wants to do that, then I'm more than happy to have them do that.
Pending the election, I'm currently a town meeting member up for re-election.
So I'll clarify too that generally speaking with the presentations, like whichever things you're presenting, I make a draft presentation and then we can talk about it. And I try to keep it pretty like straightforward and just change, you know, whatever you've seen.
Just
and then like Ryan Percival, town engineer, will be there, and as well as some people from town council that have been doing similar changes to these bylaws in other communities and are very well versed and probably could answer like any technical questions for us. I am certainly not an expert on this, so.
I thought I heard Heather volunteer so long as she's reelected.
But didn't you say, Tony, that you're not even up for re-election?
Oh no, I'm up for re-election too. I just tanked the last one really badly.
Oh, I thought you said you did the last one really well, and yeah.
No, I tanked it.
I don't remember that, Tony.
I don't either.
You're too kind.
I have no, I don't remember things like that.
Yeah, I'm happy to help out.
But right, so between the group of us, we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
All right, sounds great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And then there are minutes, but
we're gonna skip the minutes tonight.
It's late.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else? Anything newsworthy? You don't have to.
Andrew.
No, only that the next meeting, you probably saw the public hearing notice for another 40R development at 18 Woburn. So that'll be a good discussion. Other than that,
I must say, the lots are getting smaller and smaller.
yes, fair.
That's the truth. Yeah. So we have another big agenda on the 8th, as you might have gleaned from the times we were continuing things.
Yeah.
And then we are still gearing up for like a zoning workshop on March 29th, focused on the downtown smart growth district. And Andrew and I have been working on getting materials together with our GIS administrator and doing some analysis and trying to like start to plan for that. So that's
Speaking of that, Julie, in the selectmen packet for last week, there was a notice from the MBTA that as an MBTA community, we need to have a multifamily housing zone within half a mile of a station. You're on it? Good.
I mean, we're good.
Oh, we're good?
Yeah.
Because I thought it said you needed a minimum of 15 units per acre and the downtown smart growth district is 8.
It's 20.
Oh, it's 20. Okay.
Yep, we're good. All right, is there anything else, Andrew?
That's all, folks.
All right, Linda, thank you for joining us tonight and in future meetings.
Oh, it's been an experience.
Hopefully we didn't scare her away.
Yeah.
We
don't usually run 2 hours behind.
I'm glad the water tower was first, since that was the one I was, I guess will be most involved in.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.